locked. It's locked. Imad upon you at Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. The blessing of the Sabbath. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Ratalanawa, Hashabath, Bashalawam, Thowada, Aman. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives us the Sabbath in peace. Thank you, so be it. Manashah. Va'ayim A'ad Asherayim Akkad, Psalm 121. Anya Harayim Mayanyanya Oh Harayim Mayan Yabu'a Isaiah Yabu'a Mayahawa Shai Shamayim Warataza La'a Yanathan Lamawat Regalia Yala'a Yanawam Shashamarka, Hana, La'a, Yanawam, Wala'a, Yayashan, Shashwama, Yashuala, Yahweh, Shemaya, Yahweh, Tazalia, Ayel, Yan, Yawamam, Hashemash, La'a, Hakaya, Wayarak, La'a, Balayala, Yahweh, Yashamaya, Mako, Ra, Yashamar, Napasha, Yahweh, Yashamar, Hawalakia, Wabawa'aya, Ma'aitha, Wa'aid, Iwalam, Bahasham, Yahweh, Thawada, Aman.
Psalm 121. I will lift up my eyes unto the hills. From hence come the help. My help comes from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth the will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall not neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in, from this time forth and even forevermore. Amen.
Amen. Shema Yashra'Elah, heal Israel. Shema Yashra'Elah, Yahweh, Allah Hayanawa, Yahweh, Echad Shema Yasharallah Yahweh Allah Hayanawa Yahweh Echad Shema Yasharallah Yahweh Allah Hayanawa Yahweh Echad.
Deuteronomy 6:4. He, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Amen.
Amen. Stop like Yahweh, the Lord's Prayer. Abiyanawa, Shabbat Shemayim, Kodash, Hayah, Shamka, Yahweh, Malakwithka, Saba'ah, Batazawanka, Hayah, Aisha, Ba'arataza, Ka, Bashamayim, Natalanawa, Lakam, Yowum, Za, Wasalakwanawa, Kababathnawa, Kasalaknawa, Kababathanawa, Wala Habiyanawa, O Nasayawan, Abo, Awashinawa, Marad, Kaya, Laka, Hamalakwa, Wahala, Watha Parath, La Iwalam, Aman.
Matthew 6:9. After this manner, therefore, pray ye. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debt, as we forgive our debtor. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thy is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen.
Amen. Ha'aishara Matazawaf, the Ten Commandments. La'ah, Yahaya, Laka, Alahayim, Akarim, Alpanya. La'ah, Thaisha, Laka, Pasol, Wala'ah, Thaibadam. La'ah, Thalakwaka, Shamwa, Yahweh, Alahayaka, Lashwa. Zakar, Ath, Hayawum, Hashabath, La Kodashwa, Kabad, Abiaka, Wa Amaka, La'ah, Ratazak, La'ah, Sana'ap, La'ah, Saganab, La'ah, Thaina, Shakur, La'ah, Thachamat, Ko, Asherah, Lara'ayaka, Aman.
Exodus 20:2. I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and show mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, but the Lord would not hold him guiltless that take his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy maidservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gate. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, and the sea, and all that is in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God gave thee. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor. Amen.
Amen. Shabbat. Be seated. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathalanawa, Parya Hagapin, Thawada Amun, La Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ath Yasha'ala. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai with Israel. Imadwa Panyo Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. Opening prayers. Barakatha Yahweh, Hagadol, Rakuam, Abiyar, Wanara'a, Aliyawan, Malak, Shal, Shemayim, Wa'aratiza, Wakol, Dabarim, Kayayam, Wagam, Hamashiach, Mayahawa, Arawanawa, Ahabnawa, Hapalam, Yawaitiza, Yahweh Shai, Zakarnawa, Yahweh, Barataza 1, Ainka, Yasha'ala, Izanawa, Bana, Wasap, Yasha'ala, O, Nanawa, Yum Yun, Aitha, Kayawamyam, Makwadam, Baba Kusha, Shalat, Mayaka'ala, Wahatazawadak, Alahayim, La, Magunnawa, Rapanawa, Washamar, Alnawa, Baikur, Shalat, Haroka, Sho, Yahweh Shai, Lanawa, Walamadnawa, Rabium, Kakama, Sabawana, Wada'ith, Sho, Debarka, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Thawada, Thamyad, Ba'iwalam, Amun. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, the great, merciful, mighty, terrible, most high power, King of heaven and earth, and all things living, and also the anointed from Yahweh, our Lord, our friend, the wonderful counselor, Yahweh Shai. Remember us, Yahweh, favorably, your people Israel. Help us build and gather Israel. Most high, we beg you. Right now, like the days of old, please send Michael and the righteous powers to protect us, heal us, and watch over us. Mainly send the spirit of Yahweh Shai to us to teach us much wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of thy word. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you always and forever. So be it. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the law. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Ethalanawa, Hathawara. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us light to see. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Ethalanawa, Awar, Lara Awath. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the ram's horn to call the people. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Ethalanawa, Korun, Ha'iyel, Lakwara, Ha'aim. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the olive oil to anoint Israel. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Ethalanawa, Hasheman, Zayath, Lamashak, Yasha'ala. Yeshua, be seated. right. Shalom, shalom. Ashar Shabbat, happy Sabbath, peace and blessings to all the brothers and sisters throughout the nation of Israel, four corners of the earth on this glorious day. This is Hayashar Kanash, which is in the Hebrew form, and in the English, it means the congregation of Israel, where we're located here in Philadelphia, PA. And what our disclaimer is that those whose ancestors on their father's side, dating back 3 to 4 generations at a minimum, those who came over on the diaspora known as the African slave trade, transatlantic slave trade, the sub-Saharan slave trade, and those who came over here prior to the slave trade during the time of the migration of the Northern Kingdom that came over, and that was now known as the North American Seminole Indians, the Hispanics, and those who are also throughout the Caribbean. You make up the 12 lost tribes of the nation of Israel. And this message, this Bible, these commandments, this history, the prophecies, right, fruits of the Spirit, the Most High has now given us the opportunity in these last days to now take hold of them and digest them into our spirit so that we can sustain ourselves and maintain and overcome the things that's coming in these last days, to come back to the Most High. So this is the gathering of the nation, and we're gathering under our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, which in the Hebrew is Yahushua. He is the only begotten, the only one chosen, selected by the Most High to come down and sacrifice himself for the sins of our people. But before doing that, giving us an example of how we should be able to walk in these last days as men and women of the Most High. So this is who we are. We deal with the Old Testament as well as the New Testament, as well as the hidden books known as the Apocrypha, which was the original 1611 version of the Bible that was collected of and comprised of 80 books. So we go through all of these books, all of these chapters, Most High's will, on the Sabbath day as part of our Sabbath service lesson. Today, we're going to be in the Old Testament, the book of 1 Samuel, as you see scrolling on the bottom of the screen there, chapters 24 and 25. Salakia, or pardon me for, I know we started a little bit late, for my time frame, but Lord's will, we're here and we're able to get in the time to go through some scriptures, bring out some understanding in the spirit, learn from it, and then apply it and walk with it day to day. All right. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into the scriptures. We're going to jump into 1 Samuel chapters 24 and 25. I think the way these chapters, the verses, we should be able to get through them without needing to take a break. It's not that extensive. It'll give us enough time to also get ourselves together and also get out to camp, Most High's will. All right, well, we can go and touch the people and do some teaching. All right, so we're going to jump in 1 Samuel chapter 24 and verse 1. And my name is Kahan Samak, or Priest Samak. Samak stands for support for those who don't know or are interested. All right. So it says in 1 Samuel 24 and 1, and it came to pass when Saul was returned from following the Philistines that it was told him, saying, behold, David is in the wilderness of Engedi, right? Because if you recall, when we read through this 3 weeks back in the 23rd chapter, Saul was pursuing David, right? And he chased him into the wilderness, but the Spirit had it where he had information come to him. The Philistines was on the attack. So he had to stop what he was doing as far as for chasing after David to try to kill him, right? Yeah, as we're aware, Saul has an evil spirit on him towards David. And whether it's jealousy, envy, what have you, this evil spirit is driving him to want to murder David, right? Not kill David with a righteous judgment, but murder David, because there isn't any just cause for Saul to want to do this unto David, right? And we have to delineate that, because as we read in the commandments, right, when we went through Exodus, the 20th chapter, it says, thou shalt not kill, but that means in the Hebrew, thou shalt not murder, right? There is righteous killings, righteous judgment, right? When a person sins or breaks the Most High's commandment in the law, we were to stone them to death, right? That was a righteous killing, right? But now when someone goes and through envy, jealousy, right, hatred without cause, wants to go and impute harm on an individual without righteous cause, that you can go and do this, seek vengeance on them, that is considered murder, right? That is what we call murder, premeditated, all those things. That's what that's classified. This is what Saul is trying to do to David, because the Most High took the spirit away from took the spirit away from Saul because he wasn't obedient unto the instructions that the Lord had given him. Right? The Most High through Samuel gave Saul countless times to follow the instruction, and Saul continued to slip and mess up. So the Lord, already knowing his infinite wisdom, he took that spirit away from Saul, and now Saul is kind of going out chaotically and just, wilding out, as we say, trying to now remove this man David out of the way because he sees the spirit on him. The nation is now gravitating towards him, right? He's going out to war. He's winning battles in a glorious fashion, and everybody's starting to take a liking to him, right? They're lifting his name up more than what the king's name is, and Saul can't have it. But that's all the Most High that's doing that. That's the Lord that has his hand upon David, and this is happening. So when we read in the previous chapter, he was coming to go and seek out David in the wilderness, but he had to turn back. So now, after their situation is now concluded with dealing with the Philistines, now he's turned back to kind of seek after David. And the heathen had kind of let him know, or people have let him know, David is over there in the wilderness. I mean, in this area over here, Engedi. You should go over there and find, you'll find him there. So I'll read this again from 1 Samuel chapter 24:1. And it came to pass when Saul was returned from following the Philistines, that it was told him, saying, behold, David is in the wilderness of Engedi. Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men out of all Israel and went to seek David and his men upon the rocks of the wild goats, right? So, it's not just Saul himself trying to go get after David. He has to have a whole army, onslaught, because David has some men with him as well, right? David is not just by himself, right? He has those who have now made an alliance to now side with David and not the king. They understand what's going on, but they still put their lives in jeopardy to go and defend and stand with David. So Saul has to have a lot of men now that's now going to come so they can try to either apprehend or kill David. So now they're going and they're seeking him upon the rocks where the wild goats are. So in some rough terrain in a mountainous area where David is being held up at in this wilderness. Verse 3, and he came to the sheepcotes by the way, where was a cave, right? So the sheepcotes is a covering, a place where you keep, where the cattle can go into the enclosure and it's just not out in the open. So now when Saul sees this area, he spies out a cave. Then it says, and David and his men remained, Salak, I'm gonna read it again. And he came to the sheepcotes by the way, where was a cave, and Saul went in to cover his feet. And David and his men remained in the sides of the cave. So when it says that Saul went into the cave to cover his feet, it's like an expression or a euphemism that he went to go relieve himself. It's like when men go to the bathroom and you pull your pants down, what happens? All your trousers and stuff is covering your feet. So he's now going into the cave to relieve himself. It's the same thing that you read about, I think, in the book of Judges. I think it's Judges. Let me see if it's the right. Right, Judges chapter 3 and verse 23 speaks about the same thing. Judges chapter 3 and 23. This is a story of that deals with Ehud. The Most High put the spirit on Ehud to go and kill this Moabite, right? So it says in Judges 3:23, it says, then Ehud went forth through the porch and shut the doors of the parlor upon him and locked them. When he was going out, his servant came, and when they saw that, behold, the doors of the parlor were locked, they said, surely he covereth his feet in his summer chamber. So they figured that when he went into the room, he locked the door because he wanted some privacy. He didn't want nobody to come in while he's relieving himself. But then it says, and they tarried till they were ashamed, and behold, he opened not the doors of the parlor. Therefore they took a key and opened them, and behold, their Lord was fallen down dead on the earth, because he hadn't locked the door. That was something that Ehud did. He took advantage of the opportunity and went in there and killed, I think it was Eglon or whoever this Moabite's name was, killed him while he had privacy. So now it's the same thing with Saul. Saul is going into this cave to, as they say, cover his feet. Now, David got men that's on the side of the cave. They're seeing everything that's going on. They know that Saul is coming. They see him, but they on watch, right? So going back to 1 Samuel chapter 24, and we have verse 4 now. It says, and the men of David said unto him, behold, the day of which the Lord said unto thee, behold, I will deliver thine enemy into thine hand, that thou mayest do to him as it shall seem good unto thee. Then David arose and cut off the skirt of Saul's robe privately. So as he's in the cave, he had to disrobe and take off some of his apparel, and it's there. David went and took one of his blades and cut off the skirt, right? Cut it off and took a piece, right? To have as a token, to say, look, this is how I got close to you. You ain't had your men here, right? We could have jumped on him. That's the whole thing. David is going to take a token and then bounce, because if we know David's spirit, David never really wanted to harm Saul, right? Because Saul was one of the Most High's anointed. Even though Saul has a wicked spirit on him, he looks at it as if the Most High still selected this man to pour the olive oil on him and consecrate him as the captain of the host over the nation of Israel, or set him up to be king. So it's something that you just don't want to go and do, because who are you now to go and take vengeance on who the Most High anointed? You would say, you know what, let the Most High deal with him. Let the Most High deal with that. I don't want to touch him in any way, right? Especially if people look at me a certain way. So I'm going to read it again. It says, and the men of David said unto him, behold, the day of which the Lord said unto thee, behold, I will deliver thine enemy into thine hand. So his men is like, yo, he's trying to come kill you. The Most High done gave you a present. You can go and get him now, that thou mayest do to him as it seemed good unto thee, right? In most cases, you would think of an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, right? If, you know, sometimes in the streets or in the where we grew up, it was like, yo, I'm gonna hit him before he hit me, because I know he coming for me, or I'm gonna shoot him before he shoot me, right? I'm not gonna wait for him to take the first step and throw the first punch. I'm gonna do that, right? Look, this guy done came right into my backyard, and he not protected. Most High looked you out, David. We got him, right? David says, okay. Exactly. and that's the spirit that we sometimes operate in. But in this storyline, the Most High is trying to teach us, not only David expressing it, but teach us a lesson on how we deal with our own people, right? It says, then David arose and cut off the skirt of Saul's robe privately. And it came to pass afterward that David's heart smote him, because he had cut off Saul's skirt. So he didn't even impose any physical harm on Saul. He felt guiltful. He felt guilty that he just went and cut the piece of fabric off of Saul's robe, because again, this is Saul, right? You have now just done something to defame the king, right? Whether it be you physically touching him, which he didn't want to do, or just cutting off a piece or the hem of his garment. David felt guilty behind that. So now he's sitting there and he's contemplating, he's like, ah, this is messed up, right? It says in verse 6, and he said unto his men, this Lord, Salak, the Lord forbid that I should do this thing unto my master, the Lord's anointed, to stretch forth mine hand against him, seeing he is the anointed of Yahweh, right? So even when it came to something that wasn't imposing physical harm upon Saul, it was something that was just going to make him feel a little bit less protected and uncomfortable. David took, offense to that this is not right. Most High wouldn't want us to do this. This is something that the Most High will forbid, to touch the Most High's anointed. Now, when you look at it on a higher level, all of us as the Most High's chosen nation is anointed by the Most High, right? We are all Israelites, but most of us don't act and carry ourselves as Israelites. So for those of us who are in the know, those of us who are in this truth, that's how we're still supposed to conduct ourselves. We still should not want to go out there and execute vengeance upon a brother, right? Even though they may have hatred towards you, right? We got to try to show some form of discipline, right? Temperance, patience, and how we deal with our brother. Sometimes, you know, you got to fight your own spirit and now not wanting to be carnal like how we are in the world and just react, right? Sometimes we got to think first and then react, but sometimes we don't think, we just do. And then we get ourselves caught up in certain situations. And then when you reflect back on it, you say, man, why did I do that? I should have took this route, or I should have did this, or this person don't know any better. I should have just left them alone. I probably shouldn't have said anything, right? That's kind of where the spirit, when you read throughout some of David's encounters, he had those fruits of the spirit where he was a more temperate and patient, right? And forgiving of men, even though they were wrong, right? He gave them pardon. He gave them mercy. He gave them grace. So when you look at some aspects, when men look at David and they say, well, the Bible tells you that the Most High David is a man after my heart. He is. He was merciful. He was graceful at times. Not all the times, but for the majority of the times, that's how David operated with his own people, right? So read verse 6 again. And he said unto his men, the Lord forbid that I should do this thing unto my master, the Lord's anointed, to stretch forth mine hand against him, seeing he is the anointed of the Lord. So David stayed his servants with these words and suffered them not to rise against Saul. But Saul rose up out of the cave and went on his way. So David had to go to his men and say, look, leave him alone. What? Nah, come on, David, we got him. Nah, leave him alone. Right? I know there was some, back and forths, but David had to say, nah, let him alone. Man, he trying to kill you. You gonna let him go? Most High gave him right here. He gave him to you, brought him right into your bosom. You gonna let him go? Nah, let him be. Right? And then they went back into the sides of the cave and got away. And then after Saul was finished, he came up out the cave, put back on his stuff and everything else, and he's out the cave, but he don't realize what just happened, right? It says in verse 8, and David also arose afterward and went out of the cave and cried after Saul, saying, my Lord, the king. And when Saul looked behind him, David stooped with his face to the earth and bowed himself, right? So David's men left, but David still hid himself within this cave. So this had to be, a cave that had a lot of crevices and things in it where you can hide secretly and not nobody know that you're there. So when Saul left out, David followed out behind him. And as Saul's walking away, David calls to him, right? And he turns behind him and he sees David there. And then David gave him obeisance, meaning he bowed down and worshiped Saul, right?
In this situation right here, do you think that that is the Most High testing David's spirit in terms of hurt him right there? Because this guy's not going to kill you. There's the opportunity to take him out.
I would say, I guess for me, pretty much everything is an opportunity for a lesson learned, or you would say a test, right? How we deal with like the smallest details and the smallest things in my aspect, like if somebody walked into the school, right? How you greet or how you deal with that person is like a test, right? Do you show the person hospitality? You just look at them and you just say this? Do you make them feel warm and comfortable? Like all of these different things, because there's a lot of aspects in the scriptures that kind of go into that. So, well, was this specific thing a test to David? Of course it was. Because what if David was in a different spirit? David could have just went out there and killed him, right? Now, on the surface, one would say, well, David, you justify because, he was coming after you, right? He's trying to kill you anyway. But at the same time, why the Lord said that David was a man after his heart, because at times the same thing when we offend the Most High, we're always looking for grace and mercy. We're always looking for grace and mercy from the Lord when we do something wrong. And the Lord will give us that countless time and time over. So now when we do those things to each other, we should also look to extend grace and mercy and favor as well to our own brothers and sisters. But that's usually not the case. So now when we look and see how we deal with each other, sometimes it doesn't reflect the same, because Yahweh Shah said the two greatest commandments is that we love the Lord with our heart, mind, soul, right? And then you love your neighbor as you love yourself, right? So now one should also carry over to the other. If when we do this and we have this interaction with the Lord and we say, Lord, sorry, I messed up, I apologize. Can you give me some, can you give me a pass? Can you just chasten me, but don't turn away from me. Don't, remove that spirit from me like how you did some other ones. We want that mercy and favor. So when we have that understanding, that's how we got to look and see our brothers or our sisters, right? And we do it as much as Paul said, I think in Romans, the 12th chapter, as much as lies within you, right? Because we know our spirit, our heart ain't perfect. It ain't 100%. There's always lessons to be learned, but we try to the best of our ability and use these examples as times to say, let me go meditate on these things, right? Let me go think about these opportunities where I can increase my faith in the Most High, right? It's funny, when I said the word meditate, it reminds me of, I think it was last week's class, me and Makwadash was talking at the beginning of the class about yoga and how there's like some meditation practices in yoga and how they want you to clear your mind and, be one with whatever it is. I'm not too privy on it, but when it comes to meditation, the Lord tells us in Joshua 1:8, this is what your meditation should be on, right? You always want to have these principles, these morals in your mind. You don't want to clear them out and allow some other spirit to come in while you're doing some other types of exercises. You don't know what you leaving up in there. So it's like, nah, keep these thoughts. This is your armor. This is your spiritual armor to be able to fight off forces, or to be able to act righteously in the midst of certain things that's going on, right? You want to have those in the forefront. So, Kun, to your question. So now going back again, reading verse 8, David also arose afterward and went out of the cave and cried after Saul, saying, my Lord the king. And when Saul looked behind him, David stooped with his face to the earth and bowed himself. And David said to Saul, wherefore hearest thou men's words, saying, behold, David seeketh thy hurt. So when David does this, he bows, worships him, and then he gets up and he's like, so who told you I'm out to kill you, man? Like, what's going on? It's just have to say there has to be a reason why you're trying to come and kill me. Like somebody had to have told you something. Who told you that, right? Because I never said that to anybody. I never showed any aggression towards you. What's up? Like, why you keep coming at me like this, right? That's the feeling that he's trying to have Saul think with himself why he has a spirit towards David, right? Read it again, verse 9. And David said unto Saul, wherefore hearest thou men's words, saying, behold, David seeketh thy hurt. Behold, this day thine eyes have seen how that the Lord hath delivered thee today into mine hand in the cave. And some bade me kill thee, but mine eyes spared thee. And I said, I will not put forth my hand against my Lord, for he is Yahweh's anointed, right? So I could have listened to my men. We could have took you out, but I said, no, I'm not going to do that. You are the Lord's anointed. So that should be something to stop Saul in his aggression and offense towards David, to say, look, he could have done this to me, right? And I can see that he got no ill towards me because he's right? He could have did this to me, right? It says in verse 11, moreover, my father, see the skirt of thy robe in mine hand. For in that I cut off the skirt of thy robe and killed thee not. Know thou and see that there is neither evil nor transgression in my hand, and I have not sinned against thee, yet thou huntest my soul to take it. So that was a token, right? To let him know that he was that close up on him, right? To show him that he don't have no ill will or offense to him, right? Look what I got, right? And, then Saul's like, the heck? Yo, this guy cut my robe, man. Right? And now when you're seeing that he was that close up on you, now you say, all right, you're right. He could have done it. His men told him and he didn't do it. So now I gotta change up my spirit. But again, when you understand how things is going, Saul is fighting with he's fighting within himself, right? Because when you look throughout the storylines, there was 1 minute where Saul was trying to kill him. He threw a javelin at him, stuck to the wall, and then all of a sudden, the spirit changed. Either when David speaks to him, or when he plays the harp, or something else, and Saul's like, "Oh, my son, right?" Now he's looking at him as a son. Bring him here, showing him love, and then all of a sudden, the spirit changing him, and then he goes and does something totally 180 to what he was just dealing with, right? That's a person that's not stable, right? So at any point in time, you may see a spirit change on an individual, and you not know that sometimes the Most High put a spirit on an individual, right? It's going to carry over when we kind of get into the next chapter. You don't know how spirits or the Most High operates with individuals according to his will. So go to Psalms chapter 109. So this is Psalms 109. I'm going to start from 1 down to 5. Right? And you'll see that throughout a lot of the Psalms of David, when David is crying out and sending prayer to the Most High about him having forces on all different sides, it's always trying to get him. Some of them is the nations, but some of them is his own people, specifically King Saul, right? That was seeking his life. It has to be a bad feeling when you are a righteous individual. You did no hurt or harm to this person, but they're seeking your life. And it's just not anybody. This is the king, right? It says, "Hold not thy peace, O power of my praise. For the mouth of the wicked and the mouth of the deceitful are opened against me. They have spoken against me with the lying tongue. They compassed me about also with words of hatred and fought against me without a cause. For my love, they are my adversaries, but I give myself unto prayer. And they that have rewarded me evil for good and hatred for my love," right? So that's what Saul was giving. I mean, that's what David was showing Saul. He was showing him love. He was showing him good. But David gave him back the opposite, right? He gave him hatred for love. I mean, Saul. Saul gave David the opposite of what he was pushing out. He gave him hatred for kindness, right? Death for mercy, right? And that was what David was praying to the Most High to say, "Look, Most High, you don't hold this back. Like, I hope you see what's going on, right? My love has now become my adversary. My king, my Lord has become my enemy. What's going on here, right?" The water. So let's go back to 1 Samuel chapter 24. We have verse 12. 1 to 5. That was Psalms 109, 1 to 5. So it says in verse 12, "The Lord judge between me and thee, and the Lord avenge me of thee. But mine hand shall not be upon thee," right? So he's saying, listen, let the Most High discern between our disparity right now. I'm not going to put my hand upon you. I'm not going to touch you, right? It says, "As saith the proverb of the ancient, wickedness proceeded from the wicked, but mine hand shall not be upon thee," right? This is where, Yahushua and Paul and them tell us not to avenge evil with evil, right? We should not go and say, "Well, this guy went and robbed me, I'm going to go rob him," right? That's kind of the misunderstanding when you look at the eye for an eye, right? The eye for an eye is supposed to be righteous judgment, and to say, listen, this person went and stole my cattle, right? Righteous judgment says, okay, you have to repay back what was given and then some. Right? So you taken away, you got to repay that back. Not to go and say that this person went and did some wickedness, went and raped your wife or whatever. Now you want to go rape his wife. No, there's a judgment that now comes with that. That man needs to be put to death, right? That's the judgment. Not that you go and commit evil. this goes into the conversation that we was having, I think, a couple Sabbaths ago, when we get into this age-old narrative, the conversation about some camps, when a time comes where we're going to have pockets of race wars, and the Most High speaks about, and the heathens' women will be ravished, right? When we was in captivity, when you read, I think it's either Lamentations, right, it talks about our women being ravished by the nations, by the heathen, being raped and abused and so forth and so on. But now, does that mean that a righteous man is just going to go on a rampage, just ravishing women, meaning raping women, like how they do in the war or in militaries, right? They just go from house to house and rape women and move on. No, that's not what we're going to do. We're not going to give or render evil for evil. Everything that a person of the Most High, a woman of the Most High does has to be according to righteous judgment. Can't be just because they did it, I'm going to do it back because it feel good, right? Two wrongs will make it right, but make me feel good is what they say, right? It make us even, right? That's the evil, but that's not, that's a worldly carnal way of viewing righteousness or justice. It's not the Lord's way, right? And dealing with the fruit of the Spirit, between what's going on with David and Saul, David had to have now a form of patience to be able to say, you know what? Outside of mercy and grace, I'm going to be patient and just let the Lord deal with it. I'm not going to act on it. I'm not going to touch him. I'm not going to do anything to him. Let the Lord deal with it. But you constantly see him doing this. It has to kind of weigh on your mind. So verse 14, it says, after whom is the king of Israel come out? And after whom dost thou pursue? After a dead dog? After a flea? Right? Besides that, like, who are you coming out to chase? Right? Some old wicked individual, like a dead dog. When you understand the Bible, sometimes the Lord calls animals or refers to the people as animals, right? So when you look at it like a dog is also referred to as a person that's a heathen. And a dead dog in this case is like a base individual, right? Is you coming after, somebody who's like vile and feudal, like I'm David, right? I was at one point, you appointed me captain of the host. I was the commander of for the army, going out leading the charge. Is this how you deal with somebody who's like that? It says, the Lord therefore judge between me and thee, and see and plead my cause and deliver me out of thy hand. So that's what we was just reading before in Job. In Psalms 109, that the Most High is going to be the one that's going to intervene. I don't know how many of us, know someone is coming after you or looking to do harm, will think in the same manner, right? The best options, if something like that happens, and it's sad, first thing you're going to pray to the Lord, right? You're going to try to exhibit some form of temperance and patience with an individual. But then when things just get a bit too much out of hand, you may just have to go and deal with the law. You might just have to call Esau and say, oh, this guy's, he's bugging out, right? He's staking out my house. He's doing all kind of things. He's trying to be doing this. You may have to go and get the authorities so that this person doesn't really go way out and wild out that may get you out of character and cause you to sin or do something evil. So you might have to go and take those measures. You don't want to, but if a person is in that mind state, he's not listening to reason. Sometimes certain people don't listen to reason. So when they don't listen to reason, then you have to go and let Esau deal with them, right? Sometimes you're reading the scriptures where it says, listen, you got to just give a person over to Satan. Give him over, let him deal with him. Let him have him, because he doesn't want to be a part of this assembly. He doesn't want to see the right way and how a person should act, right? It says in verse 16, and it came to pass when David had made an end of speaking these words unto Saul, that Saul said, is this thy voice, my son David? And Saul lifted up his voice and wept. So after he heard all of that, realized and said, man, is that David? Is that my man? Is that my son right there? And then what happened? He felt guilty and he started crying, right? Because his actions was ill towards David without cause, without just cause. So he had to have a change of heart and realize the error in his way and try to make some form of supplication and repent for what things he was doing. Verse 17, and he said to David, thou art more righteous than I, for thou hast rewarded me good whereas I have rewarded thee evil. All right. So he's like, listen, you're a bigger man than me, because if the tables was turned, I definitely would have killed you. I definitely would have took you out. But you showed me mercy. You gave me goodness when I was just all dishing out bad things towards you, brother. I'm not as good as you. Verse 18, and thou hast showed this day how that thou hast dealt with me. For as much as when Yahweh had delivered me into thine hand, thou killest me not, right? For if a man find his enemy, will he let him go well away? So even Saul sees that he was an enemy to David. Even though they were brothers, even though they are part of the same nation, they're enemies, right? They're enemies at this point because of how Saul was conducting himself. It says, a normal person wouldn't let his enemy get away scot-free after that person was trying to kill him, right? You're going to take the advantage and get him before he gets you. It says, wherefore the Lord reward thee good for that thou hast done unto me this day, right? So may the Most High bless you, brother. May the Most High show you grace and fortune and everything that comes to it for how you have shown kindness towards me, right? Verse 20. And now, behold, I know well that thou shalt surely be king, and that the kingdom of Israel shall be established in thine hand, right? Because it was already seen. Sometimes certain things without words happen where you could just see how people just show adoration to another person. Well, in any sense, in any case, whether you're in a company, whether you're in a church, whether you're somewhere else, there's somebody that just has a spirit on them that's just different. And he conducts or she conducts themselves in a wise manner, and the people elevate them above others, right? If you're a king, you're aware, and you're like, yo, this guy here, this guy is something with him. The way he acts, the way he conducts, the way he moves, I could see why everybody loves him. It makes sense that he's going to be king one day, right? And the kingdom is going to be well in his hands. This is what Saul is seeing. If you are, humble enough to realize it, you'll see it. Some people are just stubborn and they don't want to see anything, right? But he had opportunities. He had moments where he was able to humble himself and see the reality of what was going on before him. Verse 21, swear now therefore unto me by Yahweh that thou will not cut off my seed after me, and that thou will not destroy my name out of my father's house. So now Saul is really thinking forward, because the statement that he just made, as far as for, I can see that you're going to be king and the kingdom is going to be established. Usually what happens when you have a king that now takes the throne, those who wanted to commit insurrection or challenge the throne, they go and they take them out, because you don't want them to come back and rise up again, right? Even those who are within your people. You see that a little bit later on with David's sons, right? How his sons began to act out of character and what things and what measures needed to be done amongst brothers, right? You can't have and allow that type spirit to fester, because it's going to build up like leaven, and then they may get other men and come and murder or take you out. Esau does that all day long. When you look at the Caesars and how they had different kings, that's what was going on. For power and position and money and opportunity, a man will murder. So Saul is already thinking. He said, listen, man, when you become king, please promise me, swear unto me that you will not cut off my line of sons from me, that I'll still have someone out of my line, out of my seed to continue on. Because that happens. You read the expression when it says a man will go and kill off everyone that pisseth against the wall. That's the expression. Anyone who pisseth against the wall, just another way of talking about any male child, any male in his line, they got to die. Because he don't want them to rear up seed to come back later on and think that they should be in that seat and then cause an insurrection. So Saul is now asking for David to swear that David is not going to take that vengeance upon him and his seed after the fact. right? Verse 22, and David sware unto Saul, and Saul went home, but David and his men gat them up unto the hold, right? So they made an oath, or David made an oath and an agreement between him and Saul that he would not kill off his line of sons, that he would have someone that can be, keep his posterity continuing on. And then after that, David and his men, and they got up and went to the stronghold, right? Where they was going to be protected, because now he had to deal with the next thing. Because David is traveling, he's on the move, right? So now I'm going to jump right into chapter 25.
So you kind of on the move, but it's like they made that pact, but it's still like can't just come back. You know what I mean? Come back and live, regular life. Bygones be bygones.
Right.
I might just go for now, but I'll be back. Like,
Yeah.
Why does it come back at that point?
Right. Because, even though they make this agreement, and Saul is saying, and like we touched on a little bit earlier, Saul is unstable, right? Because this is one encounter that you would have thought that it should have been dead and done, but it's not. I mean, there was other times even prior to this when Saul had opportunities and he was trying to kill David, but the Spirit had it where, of course, that wasn't going to happen. And now David could have gotten the upper hand and took him out, but he didn't. And you would have thought that this is it, but it's not, because it's going to happen again later on when we read in the chapter, showing you the instability of the spirit that's on Saul.
The Awashah talk about this. Matthew 18:15.
Read that.
Matthew 18:15 says, moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. If he shall hid thee, thou shalt gain thy brother.
Mm-hmm.
So say that's what actually David did. He went and consulted with Saul. Like we just read, what's going on, man? Why are you coming at me, man? What did I do to you?
Mm-hmm.
Had a conversation with him. Make sure there was no ill will to resolve the situation.
Right. Go to Matthew chapter 5. So you said Matthew's 18, 15, and then Matthew chapter 5. And I'm going to start from 38. Huh? Well, we just read Matthew's 18, so we're just going to go to Matthew's 5 now. So Matthew's 5 and 38, it says, ye have heard that it have been said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, right? This is what you read in the law back in Exodus 21st chapter, right? So this is something that Israel knew as a part of the law, albeit didn't fully understand it, right? Because, some of us took the law too literal, right? Like how we read in the Gospels about the Sabbath day, right? How they looked at Yahushua and the disciples and how they operate on the Sabbath. They was too literal, too rigid. And that's why Yahushua had to revert back into even some of the same storylines that we just read in 1 Samuel's with David and say, look, don't you see what David did on the Sabbath day and eating the showbread that is not lawful for him to do, right? You guys are too rigid with the law. Y'all don't understand what the Most High was really trying to convey to you with the law. So now he's saying, you have heard that it have been said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you that ye resist not evil, but whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also, right? So now Yahushua is taking what was written in the law a step further. We was just on vengeance and never mercy or grace, right? We just wanted to stone and never forgive or pardon. This is what Yahushua is speaking about now, because the Most High showed us that in the Old Testament. David did that, as we're reading right now with King Saul, right? He could have went and did this eye for an eye thing, but he didn't do that. He did what Yahushua is describing. So when we read it, sometimes people even read this too literal, right? I remember people used to say, Who is him to say, I say unto you, as if he got authority over the Most High God and he's diminishing and taking it? You reading it wrong, right? You reading it wrong. What he's just doing is trying to expound on the spirit of the letter of the law, right? You guys not living in that. Y'all living in the carnality of the law is this. Nah, you got to look at all aspects of it. So I'm going to read it again. But I say unto you that ye resist not evil, but whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also. Meaning, give that individual another opportunity, right? Don't just condemn and want to smite and throw a stone. Give them a little favor, like David just did. David could have said, nah, I ain't turning the cheek. Get him, right? Because that, and like all of our minds, what we're saying, that would have been lawful according to how people view it, but he didn't do that. So what is written here, most people take offense to and say, he's trying to bring some newness to the law. He's trying to take away that law and bring his own law in. No, he's expounding on what was already written or what was already shown to us in the testimony with the law that most people miss. It says, if any man will sue thee at thy law and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also. And whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twain. Give to him that asketh thee, and from him that will borrow of thee. Turn not thou away. Ye have heard that it have been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them that despitefully use you and persecute you. That's exactly what's happening right now with Saul and David, right? Even Saul said that he was an enemy to David, and David loved Saul, right? So now we just can't look at anybody who shows me love, anybody who says they're cool with me, that's my brother, I salute, pound, that's who I'm showing love to. But those who are my people who say, man, yo, man, F them Israelites. We don't care about, man, F the Bible. We still got to show love to them too. Because who knows that the Most High may change that spirit on an individual and he double back and be like, damn, brother, I remember when you used to curse me out. Like, me? Curse you out? Nah, that's not in the fruit of the spirit. Yeah, you cursed me out, right? But now, when you now even see a brother or a sister that's acting in that manner, I'll pray for you, brother. That's what David did. He prayed for Saul, right? Most High, come, change the spirit that's on this individual, or you deal with it, right? He's sending up prayer. He not wanting to go out there and put harm on this individual. This is what Yahushua is trying to show us, that we got to try to the best of our ability to extend mercy and favor to those of our people who are still lost in their mind. Like Paul said in the book of Titus, we was all once deceived. So now when you now sit in this seat, meaning you are in this truth, and you now remember when you was out in the world, and now you say to yourself, dag, man, this opportunity, I would have hoped that someone would always give me a level of kindness and mercy and opportunity to just be there for me, right? Don't condemn me, right? I'm like, man, I don't want to deal with that, right? You know how many times we be at camp and we see people pass by, give looks, like throw the flyer down, all that. In normal case, you like, you know what? The hell with him, the hell with her. But they come back up and down the block several times. Hey, brother, see you back again. Hey, you want to stop today? Because we now turn the cheek. Every offense that someone does to us, we're not looking to offend back. That's not how we should operate. As much as lieth within you, everyone has a certain measure that may not be the same, right? Like how Peter asked Yahushua, how often shall I forgive my brother? Yahushua said 70 times 7. He was like, what? 70 times 7. I was thinking you're going to say like 3 times and that's it. 3 is a powerful number in the scriptures, Yahushua. 3 should be the limit. 70 times 7, right? And that's not even a right number. Yahushua is just saying there's really no limit to how you forgive. Increase my faith, Yahushua, because I ain't there yet, right? So everybody, even David ain't going to always be fully there, as we're going to see, right? He sometimes steps outside and wants to go and do certain things, but that's how we should move and operate. All right. So that was Matthew chapter 5, verse 38, all the way down to 44.
Sometimes when you're not moving, man, it's tough.
It is. When you're in the heat of the moment, you're right. Listen, even me, sometimes I use myself as an example. I think it was 3 weeks ago when we was at camp, and the brother usually comes down there and panhandles, and he was, getting all, belligerent and crazy. Like there was a moment where I got kind of out of character. Like I kind of met his aggression. I wanted to meet his aggression. And then the spirit, and I had to catch myself. I was like, you know what? Nah, what am I doing? Because I know the brother's not in his right mind. He's ignorant. He doesn't know. He doesn't know well. He doesn't know better. So I had to say, you know what? You're right, brother. You're right. You're right. Yeah, brother, you're right. Just to kind of quench that spirit, because I didn't want to, keep the flame going. But sometimes, like you said, in a moment, you don't always come out 10 for 10, like you win 10 for 10. Nah, it might be 6 out of 10 or 5 out of 10, but long as it's on a upward trajectory and not like here and going down like this, then that's when it's bad. And it's like going like this, man. We got to start like, yo, you all right, brother? What's going on with you? Is something going on? You like we need to pray together. What's going on? Because man, you kind of a little rough with the people, man, right? And we got to check and see and balance that. Exactly. Exactly. Oh, that was Matthew's Salat Craig. That was Matthew chapter 18, verse 15. As far as for when somebody has an offense, if a brother offends you, Yahushua gave an order on how you try to deal with it righteously, where, disagreement, you bring in somebody to mediate. That one individual can't mediate, then you bring in a group of people, right? 3 or 4. Let them try to hear out the matter and mediate. If then that don't work, then you gotta bring it to the congregation of the church, because now this individual, somebody is being rebellious. Somebody doesn't want to hear righteous judgment, and now they need to be excommunicated, as they say, from the church, right? Because Yahushua said that where 2 or more are gathered, there I am in the midst. So when you got 3 or 4 brothers, or if it's in a situation where sisters is doing it, and they're hearing the matter out and they don't want to listen to reason, then you got to bring it to a higher court, a higher body in this case, and let them hear it out. And then that person has to be removed because he now has a rebellious spirit. And then you don't want to allow that to continue on, because once one person sees it, usually what happens? Well, if he can act that way, I can act that way, right? If he don't want to listen to reason, well, then I'm buck up too. And then it becomes chaotic. So you don't want to have that's just a good way, when you read Matthew 18, 15 on down, of maintaining order within the body, within the church, or even your household or whatever. You got to take these measures. It's a spiritual thing to do that, so it doesn't seem one-sided. And then when you read the other aspects, it's just putting both of them together with the mercy and the righteous way about making dealing with judgment. All right. So now let's go back to 1 Samuel. We're in chapter 25 and verse 1. And it says, and Samuel died, and all the Israelites were gathered together and lamented him, and buried him in his house at Ramah, right? So now, Samuel from his youth was dedicated to, being a priest of the Most High, was a righteous individual, established order and justice. Now his sons was a bit off, which led to Israel wanting to go and get a king. But Samuel, the man, was a righteous one. He was one of those pillars that we had in the nation. I think you read about it. I don't know. I think it's in Chronicles, where the Most High says he had Moses and Samuel to be his mediator for the nation, right? Showing that even the Lord regarded Samuel as one of those righteous prophets and pillars and priests of the Lord. At this point, he died. I think it said he grew up in Ramah. There was a certain place where a lot of the priests were buried. But Samuel, when he went and and dwelt in Ramah, that became his dwelling place, and that's where he died, and that's where they buried him. They didn't take him out and buried him in another area where most priests or prophets were buried. Same thing they do with the kings. So there's like an area where the kings sometimes are buried collectively. And then some of them may have one-offs here and there, but it's kind of like a customary thing where they have certain men of certain lineage buried in that area. You want to say something?
That wasn't what I thought.
Oh.
The Old Testament brother from last week. We might talk about it later, but something that he mentioned to try to combat the New Testament.
Mm-hmm.
He said when they anoint his body, anoint his body with spices. It's like, where you see that in the Old Testament? Where you see that when we anointed, a dead body? Where you see that in the law?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, listen, everyone had, burial customs. Kept trying to say, it was like idolatry was done. And you only read about Egyptians doing it. I'm like, no, everyone had their own burial rituals, right? Some more, a lot more elaborate than others. You can't use that as like evidence to say that they were going off.
Done. So reading again, it says, and Samuel died, and 1 Samuel 25:1, and Samuel died, and all the Israelites were gathered together and lamented him, cried over him, mourned him, and buried him in his house at Ramah. And David arose and went down to the wilderness of Paran. And there was a man in Meon whose possessions were in Carmel. And the man was very great. And he had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. And he was shearing his sheep in Carmel, right? So now we coming upon, as David has now left the situation with Saul, Samuel dies, they lament him in Ramah, and then he leaves there, and now he's going back down into the wilderness of Paran. Now he's about to encounter this man who's very wealthy, right? 3,000 sheep, 1,000 goats, and at this point in time, he's shearing his sheep, right? And it says that because if you go into the history and understanding about when the shearing time, you usually do that in the springtime, right? Because usually you want to have your sheep with a full coat of wool on them during the winter so they can survive and get enough heat during the wintertime. And then when the winter ends and the spring comes in, you shear the sheep so that through the spring and the summertime, right, they can like cool themselves off, but their sheep, their coat is now building back up slowly over time. By the time you get into the fall season, now it's almost back to its full coat, and then they can go into the winter. And then you can do all what you need to do. So it's kind of letting you know this is around the spring season that now David is now encountering this man that's very wealthy. It says, now the man, Salak, now the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife, Abigail. Abigail, right? And she was a woman of good understanding and of a beautiful countenance. But the man was churlish and evil in his doings, and he was of the house of Caleb. So now, when you go into the etymology of his name, Nabal, I think it comes with foolish, and Abigail, I think is like joy of my father, or sometimes it says my father's exalted or something like that. I kind of saw two different things. But yeah, Kahan is his daughter's name, Abigail. But names sometimes either will precede you or get attached to you based on your character, your conduct, right? Now, I don't know if this man's parents named him from the womb that, or as time goes on, like how it happens in normal settings where a child grows up and then he does or she does certain things, then they get a surname, right? And that surname becomes the name that most people identify an individual by. And sometimes most people don't even realize what your real name is because everybody knows you by that surname and will call you by that surname, right? I've had that happen many times. You're like, oh, that's your name? I never knew that. Well, because everybody just know me as that, and I left it as such, right? But now this man, Nabal, it says that he was evil and churlish, but his wife was a beautiful woman and of an understanding mind, sound mind. Now, one would look, sometimes you look at couples and you be like, man, how did that man end up, or how did that woman end up with that man? Because I forget in the Apocrypha, forget where it says in Ecclesiasticus about a wicked woman is given to a wicked man, something to that effect. Con, if you could find that, because I don't want to. Con, bear with us 1 second. Con, it is Ecclesiasticus 26 and 23, right? Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha, chapters 26, verse 23. The water. Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha, chapter 26 and verse 23. It says, a wicked woman is given as a portion to a wicked man, but a godly woman is given to him that feareth the Lord, right? So now, here it is. You look at this woman, it says that, reading it again in verse 3, now the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife Abigail, and she was a woman of good understanding, right? So this was a woman who understood the Most High, understood the law, understood her culture and everything else. She had good morals. It says, and of a beautiful countenance. On top of that, she was good to look at, pretty gorgeous. But the man was churlish and evil in his doings, and he was of the house of Caleb. So when you read this verse's precept that we just pulled in Ecclesiasticus, you would think that, well, that contradicts itself. That contradicts what we're reading here, because this woman, based on what we're reading, is a righteous sister, and this man is wicked. So how did the two, like that would seem like a curse unto this woman, right? Now, not knowing the age of this woman or the age of both of them or what have you, but some things we don't get all the backstory and the details. Maybe this man, right? Air quotes on maybe, because we don't know. Maybe this man was okay in the beginning when they met. He was cool when they got married and went on. And then over time, he got evil and churlish, right? Became a miser and all kind of different things. When you look back for the further chapters with Saul, Saul was a righteous man at one point, so much so that the Most High anointed him. But then when you read throughout his storyline, you see that he had some form of rebelliousness in him and caused the Most High to remove the spirit. And Saul became what we're reading about now. So we don't know if this man started out good and then now he's ending up where David is about to have this encounter with him, where he's churlish and evil, and he's gotten this name attached to him. We don't know at what point that is. But we know that this guy is wicked, but his wife is a woman of sound mind and body, right? A woman of the Lord to a certain extent, right? It says in verse 4, and David heard in the wilderness that Nabal did shear his sheep. And David sent out 10 young men, and David said unto the young men, get you up to Carmel and go to Nabal and greet him in my name. So like we mentioned in the last chapter, David had some men with him. David just didn't roll by himself. Pardon me, he didn't just roll by himself. He had some, men of war that was with him, and those who just wanted to travel and align themselves with David. So David is seeing that they got men out there shearing sheep. So David said, you know what? Y'all go up and show respect unto Nabal, right? While we're here observing what's going on, and just bid peace unto him, right? This is what David is doing. This is just, being righteous and kind, right? It says, Marie 5 again, and David sent out 10 young men, and David said unto the young men, go, so like, get ye up to Carmel and go to Nabal and greet him in my name, and thus shall ye say to him that liveth in prosperity, peace be both to thee, and peace be to thine house, and peace be unto all that thou hast, right? So David extended first, an olive branch of peace towards this man and his whole household, right? He didn't even come. He sent men and said, look, my master is, showing favor to you and extending a blessing from the Most High upon you and your whole household. We saw your men out there in the fields shearing sheep, and we just wanted to come and pay that respect, right? This is what now is going on. Verse 7, and now I have heard that thou hast shearers. Now thy shepherds which were with us, we hurt them not, neither was there aught missing unto them, all the while they were in Carmel. So while, you know, the men are there, they're expounding upon that over in this other area where the sheep are being sheared, we saw them, everything that was there, we didn't harm it, we didn't take away anything, nothing happened to your men. We just are now coming and extending greetings unto you, right? That's where how we know about you, because we met your men. Verse 8, ask the young men, and they will show thee. Wherefore let thy young men find favor in thine eyes, for we come in a good day. Give, I pray thee, whatsoever cometh to thine hand unto thy servants and to thy son David, right? So they're just looking for, you know, hospitality, right? That's kind of what is expected of Israelites amongst each other, right? You see, you know, not just Israelites, heathens do it too amongst each other, right? They will show a form of hospitality. It's sad that most of us, because of all the hardships and all the ill dealings that we had with one another, right? That whole post-traumatic syndrome that we've gotten of coming out of slavery and the conditions that has been put upon us, we don't act that way toward each other. We are very protective. You don't want nobody to come into your space. You don't want to extend the hand, because if you extend the hand, somebody's looking to take advantage of you, right? And you just kind of like standoffish. But in this manner, this is how we were supposed to operate. We were supposed to be like how they used to say how the South was back in the day. The South ain't like that no more. But back in the day, they used to say, yo, the South showed that Southern hospitality. Nobody locked their doors. The doors are just wide open, and you can just come in and just somebody give you a glass of lemonade, all these good things. That's kind of how it was supposed to be. But now everything is a 180, right? You got all kind of violence going on down in the state. Ain't nobody leaving the doors unlocked no more. They got guns standing behind the door because violence is now running rampant. But during this time, this is the spirit that we were supposed to be in, right? Go to the book of Romans. Say again? A real community, right? Romans chapter 12 and verse 13. And then we're going to go to Titus. Con. If you read that, go ahead, Manashah. Romans 12 and 13.
Romans 12 and 13. Distributing to the necessity of saints, giving to hospitality.
Right. So it says we should be distributing to the necessity of the saints, right? When you read up in this verse, is going into the spirit and the characteristics that we should be towards one another. I'm just touching on this one aspect, but there's a lot of different things that we should now have between us as a people. The first part, it says distributing to the necessity of saints, right? Distributing to the needs of your people, right? Giving out food or clothes or this or that to the necessity of Israelites, because the saints are the people who have made a covenant with sacrifice to the Most High, right? That is the nation of Israel. So the saints are Israelites, and we are supposed to look out for one another. It's sad that out of all people, when we want to internally look out for one another or do right by each other, it's deemed as a form of insurrection. It's deemed as a form of, these guys are now conspiring to do something, because we can never show to the outside world that we want to now do for self, right? Everybody else is able to have their own district, right? Almost every major city has a district that's just for the Chinese people. Food, banks, clothes, this, that, and the third, right? East Indians, they have it in certain areas, they have a section. Like everybody can have a section that most people know is just that's for them. If you want to come in and do trade and commerce and certain things, that's cool. They're not forbidden. But when we do it, it is now met with a form of aggression as if we're about to interact. That goes into, again, that PTSD type mentality of these things happening over time. We were joking about it before. Even I have been privy to being in a corporate setting, being in an office building, and being in a room, and two brothers talking. You kind of looking like you're looking out the door like, I want to see if somebody walk by and see me. And if they do, all right, we got to go. Right? Why? Because they are now going to view that as what they conspire. They about to steal something. They about to do something. You got to watch the system. They might have to go. That's kind of what, and that might not be it, but it's in our minds because it has happened time and time again over within our history. So we now don't do what we're talking about here. We don't distribute to the necessity of the saints. I'm going to keep this for myself. You want to get some? I got mine. It was this song. I don't know if it was Tupac or whatever. He says, "I got to get mine. You got to get yours." I got to get mine. You better go get yours. It's not that I have and I can share because you lack. It's not. Every man for themselves right now. And that's that spirit that even us, that's in this truth. I'm not saying that I'm the most liberal person that's going out there, but I understand that these people are my brothers, and if somebody has or lacks, that we'll give, right? And I'm waiting for Most High's will, somebody to come up. I got stuff in my car still, I haven't taken it out, but that's the purpose, to want to give when they have in need, right? And then it says, given to hospitality. Right? Hospitality is showing that favor and that grace, being a host to when someone needs something, right? Again, it's a spirit that we got to break because of all the stuff that you've been wrong. And sometimes, sad to say, sometimes, and I've seen it in my X amount of years, sometimes you even get wronged by brothers and sisters, right? You get wronged by brothers and sisters, and it shouldn't be that way, right? When I say brothers and sisters, I mean those who are in the truth. Right? Because we're still building, we're still growing, we're still trying to nurture ourselves, and we still got that old man, that old woman, and those things come back and they do it. And it's like, oh man, see, that's why I don't do that. Right? That's why I don't do that. You gotta be like somebody that I've been with and went a whole 5 years and never offended me before I extend the hand to you. That's kind of how this, but we got to break that.
Nah, you saying that we don't have a section. I said we do have a section. I mean, I took off with the other nation. It's called a hood.
Expound.
No, I'm saying because you have Chinatown, you have literally Italy and all that. We got the hood. I mean, if you were to go to that section, you go to the hood. Most of the time, what do you find? Us. Right.
You find us, but in the hood, we're not given the hospitality.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm just saying it's section.
Right. That's the piece. It's not so much like how Yahweh Shah said when you're reading the gospel, for the kingdom of heaven is not, you can't say, lo, go here, lo, go there, right? It's within you. So it's a spirit, right? So when you look at the spirit of it, the spirit of things, because to that point, you could say like, yeah, we don't have to have a certain street named off from this block, 3 blocks down and 4, like we don't have to have that. If we had that just within the hood, like right now in North Philly, if somebody said, you know what, for a week, putting the guns down, right? We going out there getting food and clothes. We're going to have little workshops for the kids. And all. If we did that, right, in the hood, it wouldn't matter. It's in the hood and the building broke down and everything else. It's the spirit that's involved in it, right? It would be so beautiful that you would look past, that light flickering and this going on. It's like, yo, I'm looking at the light that's shining from all of us that's doing the right thing. That's that spirit that we don't have to do to expound on some of these things that's here, that some of the other nations have the opportunity to freely do, right? But without the knowledge of the Most High, we are now supposed to do it with the knowledge of the Most High and break that curse, that mindset that we have from the past. You had Dana too? Or
It's funny you say that. Like last week, I was in Jacksonville. And I met this Northern Kingdom. And he was, telling me about some areas. He's like, yeah, man, this area is good. But if you go over there, to the black people, you don't want to go. He said, y'all over there, they cause a lot of trouble. Yeah. So he said, yeah, because that area causes a lot of trouble. There's a lot of young over here, but over here, it's older folks. Older folks, Tyree, they take care of the property, you can see. But over there, or the young black over there, you don't want to go over there. So I'm like, I'm like looking at it, I was like, wow. That's, just shaking my head. I'm like, I mean, I hear you. I drove to the area, and sad to say, he's right. When you go over there, when I drove through, I'm like, even me, I'm like, right? I'm like, okay, but I've been around, so I'm comfortable because I know how to deal with my brothers and sisters, but just hearing it from him, it was just like, wow, it's crazy.
Right.
But we're just saying, man, like I said, we do have our sections.
Con.
You got a couple of lose. Red line scarf? That's what we
Con. I see the next precept I was going to, the Wada Taza Ayah Gabar. I was going to go to exact precept you just pulled. That's in the spirit there. 1 Peter chapter 4. I'm going to start at 8 and go to verse 9. First Peter chapter 4 and verse 8. It says, and above all things, have fervent charity among yourselves, right? For charity shall cover the multitude of sins. So when you have that unfeigned love to do good, right? Constantly, consistently, like you're not doing it for a season and not for a moment. It's fervent charity that you have within the body. The Lord says the sins that you may do, the offenses, the Lord will just pardon that because he sees that you have that good heart to want to do good. Sometimes Satan or your temptations and your lusts may get the better of you, right? Your desires to want to go do this, that, and the third. But for the majority part, you out looking to now go and show favor and kindness and exhibit these things for the people. The Lord says that aspect of the fruit of the Spirit in you will cover a whole multitude of sins, right? And this is where sometimes people don't get it when they read about in 1 John, where it says, he that is without sin is a liar and the truth is not in him. And it's like, we all sinners. See, we all sinners. Yeah, but okay, just because we're sinners, well, what are you doing? Right? Are you a sinner that's into this philosophy? Are you a sinner that just cares about making it to the league? And are you a sinner that is trying to put these types of qualities within your people? Because if you do that as a sinner, the Most High says, I can cover a blind eye to those sins because I see and show favor into that. Right? The things that you lack are lacking, but the things that you are now trying to increase in, I'm acknowledging that over the other. Right? So reading again, it says, and above all things, have fervent charity among yourselves, for charity shall cover the multitude of sins. Use hospitality one to another without grudging, right? That's key, because sometimes when you want to do good or do something for somebody, don't make it seem as if it's forced. That's when it's without grudging, because it's like, I guess I'm supposed to go and do this for that person. In your mind, in your heart, you don't want to do it. But if I'm here and the congregation is seeing me, guess what I got to do? I got to save face, right? Got to save face so that Manashah won't think that Samak wicked as hell because he ain't want to do such and such, right? But inside, I'm doing it. I'm like, man, you leave it up to me. If nobody was here, I'd be like, man, get the heck out of here in my mouth. I probably wouldn't say those words, but I wouldn't do it. Right? I wouldn't do it. Just giving eye service. Men pleasers. Right? Paul and Yahushua say we can't be men pleasers. We got to do this sincerely. So the way in which you break that chain and you break that spirit is when you look at how the Lord is dealing with you. Right? The Lord can't show you favor and do things for you when you got this ill spirit in you and looking at other people in that manner. That's why forgiveness is a heavy trait. That's why looking at those as being you is a big deal on how you view your brothers and sisters. You got to put yourself in their shoes. How would you want to be dealt with if you was in that space? Talk to that person like how you wanted to be talked to, right? I can recall members of Elders of Quan used to get on some of the camps when the camps be out and they be wilding out on women. It was like, yo, if that was your mother, would you want me to talk to your mother like that? Right? Nah, of course you wouldn't want me to talk to your mother or your sister or your wife in that manner. You would want to have at least some decorum on how you converse with an individual. So it's the same thing when you now dealing with other people. You got to put yourself in their shoes. If they're going through something, that if that was me, how would I want somebody to deal with me? That's how you show favor and love to the next person. That's where being your brother's keeper, loving your neighbor as you love yourself. So Yahweh Shah said a man's supposed to love his wife as he loves himself, right? That way you don't abuse your wife, you don't beat her, you don't mistreat her, no, right? You got to look at her in that manner and vice versa, all right? So that was 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 8 to 9. Let me see if there's one more that I want. No, we read it already. All right, let's go back. 1 Samuel chapter 25. So we read verse 8 and then we move on. It says, ask thy young men, and they will show thee. Wherefore let thy young men find favor in thine eyes. For we come in a good day. Give, I pray thee, whatsoever cometh to thine hand unto thy servants and to thy son David. So, this is in the beginning of the harvest season, the spring season, when most likely if they're shearing sheep. So he should have an abundance. And this man is a rich man, right? So we came on a good day, probably, got his own thing going. And whatever you can give to my servants and to me, and we'll take that, kindly and be about our way. Verse 9. And when David's young men came, they spake to Nabal according to all the words in the name of David and ceased. And Nabal answered David's servants and said, who is Dawadah? Right? David's name in Hebrew, right? Who is David? And who is the son of Jesse? There be many servants nowadays that break away every man from his master, right? So they coming, and him being the way that he is, because he's churlish, as it says, and evil in his doings. What are you talking about? Who is this guy, David? I don't know him. You know what? Sometimes, man, some men just rebellious and wicked. They just flee from their masters, man. I don't know this guy. Who's Jesse? I don't care about his lineage. That's how he's speaking to this individual. Now, in saying this, of course, David was a popular man at this time, right? As we're going to read on, David was a man that was well known throughout Israel. It wasn't somebody that you just didn't know about, right? He was second in command at one point under Saul. But the way in which he's speaking to him is how, he's well known by his name, Nabal, and the characteristics that now everyone knows of him. So now he's speaking very churlish to David's servants. Verse 11, shall I then take my bread and my water and my flesh that I have killed for my shearers and give it unto men whom I know not whence they be, right? So now when David said he comes on a good day, he must have seen that he had a lot of stuff already prepared. So now when they come in, he's like, look, shall I now take away what I gave for those guys to get at you? Who's y'all, right? Well, I don't know y'all like that. So you want me to take food from my plate and give it to you, right? As if to say you're lacking. But this guy, as we read in the beginning, had very great possessions, blessed, fortunate, right? But he's what they call niggard, right? Let's go to the book of the Apocrypha, Ecclesiasticus. He's a niggard with a D. Ecclesiasticus chapter 4. Right. Uh-huh.
What do you say, nigga? I said, nigga. Just try to do the same thing. I said, nigga.
Right.
Get him out of here.
So this is Ecclesiasticus chapter 14 and verse 3. It says, riches is not comely for niggard, and what shall an envious man do with money? Right? So now to have an abundance, a surplus of things is not comely, or it's not right, it's not meet for a person that's like this. When you look at the word niggard, it's like being a miser, someone who's like a Scrooge, tight with the money, has a whole bunch of everything, but it's just like, listen, I'm not sharing this with nobody, right? So what benefit is it to have somebody who's like that, to have an abundance of things that he's never going to share with the people, right? It says, he that gathereth by defrauding his own soul gathereth for others, that shall spend his goods riotously. He that is evil to himself, to whom will he be good? He shall not take pleasure in his goods, right? So when you are evil toward yourself, one would say, how can you be evil toward yourself? As you take it like how people who are, I don't know if it's Catholics, they go and beat themselves. Yeah, they back all blood. Yeah. I want to suffer like ours. They just beating themselves. Is that what it's talking about, being evil to yourself? No. Because when you don't abide by the morals and principles of the Most High and how you're supposed to deal with yourself, then you are being evil to yourself. The things you eat, if you eat all things that the Lord says don't eat, then you are being evil toward yourself. You're not just giving it to somebody else. That's like when we was at camp and the person came by and they had like sandwiches and they were trying to give out sandwiches to like people who, you know, needed them out there on the block. And I was talking, I was like, well, what sandwiches is it? What do you got? Well, she said, I got some turkey, I got some ham. And then I was like, you got some ham? But she's giving them out because, you know, sometimes there be homeless people sitting on the ground. She's giving them out. And I was like, that's I understand the spirit in what you're doing, but according to the Most High, that right there is evil. You're suffering sin upon another person. But now when you even do it to yourself and you're eating these things, you're doing those things, just, participating in those things, you are being evil toward yourself. And there's a judgment in the spirit that comes along with that. So that's why he's saying, he that is evil to himself, to whom will he be good? So now if he's doing that to himself, what do you think is going to happen to everybody else? Right? He's a nigger to himself. Niggered. Right? Right. Samad, what are you doing? You can't see that. This is the Quran. Right? Verse 6. There is none worse than he that envieth himself. I remember when I first read that, I was like, damn, that's deep. There is none worse than he that envieth himself. Meaning that person can never be content, right? That's like how you see certain people when they acquire certain riches and money. It's like, okay, I got $1 million. Nah, $1 million ain't enough. I got to get 5 million, and they still not distributing, not dealing with their funds and things like how they should be. Nah, 5 million. Nah, I got to get 10 million. I got to get 100 million. I got to get $500 million. Now I got to get $1 billion. $1 billion ain't enough because this guy got 4 billion. I got to get 10 billion, and you're still not sharing or doing good with it, right? You're envious to yourself because what you think you have or what you see you have, that ain't nothing, right? I got to get more than what I got. I got to keep doing it and keep building. Now, one would say, to acquire things, there's nothing wrong with acquiring things. But the manner and spirit of how you and why you're acquiring these things, that's what the Lord is looking into the spirit. We always talk about it. It's not the action of doing it. It's the reason why you're doing it, right? You want to go and give food to the homeless. Why? Because it's a tax write-off? That's wicked, man. It's wicked, right? That's your reasoning for doing it? Because it's a tax write-off for your company? You're not doing it just because it's the right thing to do and the person is hungry, right? That's what goes into motives. So now when it talks about he's evil to himself, to whom will he be good? He shall not take pleasure in his goods, meaning the Most High is going to cut that man's or woman's life short, and somebody else is going to take their goods and have pleasure with them. It says, there is none worse than he that envies himself, and this is a recompense of his wickedness. And if he doeth good, he doeth it unwillingly, right? This is what we read in Peter's about doing hospitality ungrudgingly, right? You don't want to have no grudges when you're doing it. But when this person does it, he's doing it unwillingly, right? He doesn't have a desire to do it. He's being forced to do it. It says, and at the last, he will declare his wickedness. The envious man hath a wicked eye. He turneth away his face and despiseth men. That's exactly what we're reading about right now, right? This guy is despising men and he's turning away. He don't want to give them nothing, even though he has an abundance. A covetous man's eye is not satisfied with his portion. Going back to what we just read as far as for how he envied himself. And the iniquity of the wicked drieth up his soul. A wicked eye envieth his bread, and he is a niggard at his table, right? So at the table, right, he don't want to share nothing, right? I would hate, if you was at a banquet with this person, you went to sit at dinner, and they bringing the stuff out. You looking at his portion, you looking at your portion. You like, yo, it's kind of strange, right? Like all the bowls of green beans and this and everything is down there, and all we just get is like a couple springs of salad and a chicken leg. That's it, brother. You happy with what you get, but it's like that just seems kind of, I don't know. Okay, fine, right? And then you know how that person is, and you deal with them accordingly, right? His name becomes like this guy here in Nabal. Now, it's unfortunate that the sister Abigail has to put up with this guy, right? It's unfortunate because she's his wife. And it's not like how it is today where you see some, you see the ill spirit that now develops in your husband, that you just say, I can't deal with this no more. How you dealing with the people? How you talking to the people? I'm out. Let me go to the priest and see if we can no, a woman just can't get divorced out, right? So she had to stay with him. This is how ancient traditions and things operated. So now this is why she's now going through this. However, we did read that, a righteous woman is going to be given to a man that fears the Lord. So sometimes that could just be the stepping stone to get to where the Most High wants you to be, right? But you might be dealing with this situation for a season, for a moment, and then all of a sudden the Most High may bring in somebody else, right? That was just for you to now go through whatever trials that you need to go through to get to the next level. That also happens sometimes, right? Actually, we're about to read it. So going back to 1 Samuel chapter 25, we have verse 12 now. So David's young men turned their way and went again and came and told him all those sayings. And David said unto his men, gird ye on every man his sword. And they girded every man his sword, and David also girded on his sword. And they went up after David about 400 men, and 200 abode by the stuff. So you can estimate David had about 600 men with him, rolling, right? So when they came back and told him how this guy spoke churlish to them, mount up. Mount up. Get your swords. We're about to go take this guy out, man. We're about to go kill this man, right? Because you don't take your sword to just go talk. They already did the talking. Now we about to go fight. We about to go slay, right? So now keep in mind, we just read in the previous chapter how David had favored to Saul, the Lord's anointed. He didn't want to put no hand on him. He didn't want to go and touch him for what, his aggression towards him. Now, some moments later, David about to go, he ready to go kill another brother. This ain't a heathen, this is a brother, right? He ready to go now execute vengeance upon this guy who don't spoke to him in this manner.
Think of too, like today we talk about the Forbes list. We have like Forbes, 500, Forbes 100 as far as companies. You get individual wealth, and you always have next to their name, they'll say inherited versus like self-made. For the self-made person, you look at them one way as opposed to the inherited person, you look at them differently. So I'm saying he comes from the house of Caleb. So, Caleb was made man. He put the work in. It's like a challenge to whoever inherits whatever you have, be your kids or your servants, right? For them to have that same will, that same drive, it tends to, fade off after a while.
Right.
Generation to follow, because it's like always had.
Right.
So it's just like what happened, from down to Caleb, where now it's like this is someone came from his mind later on that wasn't like Caleb.
Right. So we're just going into, for those who probably didn't hear, because I see I think that's Zaquan who's asking us to speak up. When it goes into the line that Nabal came from, he came from a good stock by the man Caleb. When you go back into the book of Joshua, remember Joshua and Caleb were the two that only entered into the land of Israel that came out of Egypt, right? The Lord said that those two men were the only ones that obeyed me that came out of Egypt. So the Lord showed them favor where they was able to go into Israel. So by now showing that he came from Caleb, or he was of the house of Caleb, that was a righteous man who was given a lot of inheritance. So now when you go through his lineage, what Kahan is speaking on is sometimes you would expect that type of mentality to continue on or within the legacy, that that, I'm coming from Caleb. I got to live up to my grandfather, my great-granddaddy's name, right? So I can keep the name and existence going on. But somewhere down the line, sometimes it changes, like what we see here with this individual, where he's kind of putting a stain on that legacy by his actions, right? Because usually you're known by, we know each other by just name. Like, oh, you such and such son? Like the scriptures tell you, Apocrypha, you such and such son? Oh, you good. Because your grandfather or your father, that's a good man. If he's a good man, then you should be a good man. That's the expectation. Does that always carry through? No, because we just read back in, I think, 1 Samuel, either 7th chapter or so, 8th chapter, with Samuel's sons. Samuel's sons took bribes and did all kind of things. So they expected righteousness from Samuel's sons, but they didn't do that, right? So they had to go and look otherwhere. So that's the same thing with him. He's not living up to that name of coming out of the line of the posterity of Caleb. So now reading on verse 14. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to salute our master, and he railed on them. But the men were very good unto us, and we were not hurt, neither missed we anything, as long as we were conversing with them when we were in the fields. They were a wall unto us both by night and day, all the while we were with them keeping the sheep. So now when David's 10 men came to speak to Nabal, one of Nabal's men was there. And after he spoke to them in that manner, and then they left and went back and told David, he went and told Abigail. Why? Because we know that Abigail is a person of understanding, right? So he wanted to go talk to her so that she could either go talk to him or try to deal with the matter righteously, right? This is the whole point of the matter, right? And then it says that while they was in the field, they wasn't just there. He said that they were a wall unto us night and day, meaning they protected us. Like we had no fear, and anybody coming to us try to take our sheep or impose harm on us, they was there and we felt secure. These guys is good. And your husband, he dealt with them wrongfully. He railed on them. Verse 17. Now therefore know and consider what thou wilt do, for evil is determined against our master and against all his household. But for he is such a son of Belial that a man cannot speak to him, right? This guy got a spirit on him, man. It's like the devil is on. He got a demon on him. Nobody could talk to him at times. You try to reason, it just don't happen, right? So can you go and do something? Because this guy is about to come with his men and they about to kill us all. They about to kill him and the whole household. I don't know what they're going to do to me out of rage for what your husband did.
So now you in agree with what David did, was going to do?
Well, if you read along, wisdom is going to come in. That's why I think I touched on it a bit in 24, and acknowledging and seeing the spirit that's on David and how he dealt with Saul, and then now how he's dealing with Nabal. But as we read on, we're going to see that now he's going to like pop back in, right? Because right now he don't have no mercy for him. He ready to come kill him, right? Now, granted, he's not the king, right? David is looking at Saul as he's the anointed of the Most High, but all of us, to a certain degree, are like the anointed of the Most High without having a status or position of sitting on a throne or to be a priest to go into the temple. We are all consecrated by the Most High by now having his name on us and having the law be in our spirit. That's the mind state, right? A royal priesthood, right? A nation of kings is what we're supposed to be. So, but to your point, hold that thought, and we'll see as we read on. Right? The question was, if those in here, was David right in what he's doing right now? Verse 18, then Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves and 2 bottles of wine and 5 sheep ready dressed and 5 measures of parched corn and 100 clusters of raisins and 200 cakes of figs and laid them on asses. So, because remember, David got a lot of men, right? It's about approximately 600 men. 10 came with him, but, she don't know how many. So she's, going all out to show some type of supplication to David so that he don't come and wild out. This is what they call hospitality, right? He came with peace. We're going to show him peace. Verse 19. A full-fledged catering. You're right. Yeah, you would say that it's kind of short on the wine, brother. Yeah, you would say it's short on the wine. Yeah. Verse 19, and she said unto her servants, go on before me. Go on before me, behold, I come after you. But she told not her husband, right? So she laid everything up, sent the men in front, and then she trailed behind them. She didn't tell Nabal yet anything, because most likely he would have done what? Stop her. Women, what are you talking about, right? Bring those asses back in here, man. Put all my food back over there, right? I'm getting these guys nothing. So she kept quiet. Now, remember, because according to the law, right, just the same how a father is supposed to have the authority over his daughter. When a daughter or woman marries a man, now that goes to her husband. So now if the husband says, shut down, you can't do that, she's supposed to obey. So she used wisdom to not even go tell him yet. She's going to tell him, but she ain't tell him yet, right? She's going to hold off. I forgot there's a saying, we use it in our line of work. It's pretty much like when you're about to do something, but it may be met with disdain or but it's like do it and then ask forgiveness later. But I forget the first part. I always forget the first part. Yeah, right. If something appears to be right, but somebody else don't see it yet, sometimes you just go and do it, and then you come back and they find out, you're like, Salakia, my bad. Just forgive me. I thought I was doing the right thing. But all the while, you knew that person was going to probably stop you or stunt your growth from doing it, right? This is kind of what Abigail is taking the course. So now, reading on, verse 20. And it was so, as she rode on the ass, that she came down by the covert of the hill. And behold, David and his men came down against her, and she met them. Now David has said, surely in vain have I kept all this that this fellow hath in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that pertaineth unto him. And he have requited me evil for good. Right? So now again, this is the perspective that David is having right now, right? And this is how sometimes we view it, because what David is saying, I was in the field with this guy's servants and his sheep and all his stuff. I could have took it what I wanted. I could have did with it what I wanted to, right? But I show favor and peace. And then I come up to this guy and this is how he deal with me. This what he do? Man, I should have not done anything. I should have just left it alone and just went and did what I wanted to do. That's how sometimes you may think. When you want to do good and it's met with evil, then you would be upset at the kindness that you showed. That's why sometimes you don't want to do it again, right? When somebody, slaps you in the face with your kindness, then it's like, man, I ain't going to put my hand and do no good no more because somebody always making me look like a fool. I don't want me to look like the fool no more. Matter of fact, I'm going to make them feel ashamed. And he's about to try to impose physical harm on them. So this is what he's expressing to Abigail. He's upset that he showed kindness to a churlish individual. It says in verse 22, so and more also do God unto the enemies of David. If I leave of all that pertaineth to him by the morning light, any that pisseth against the wall, right? So now David like, look, the evil that he showed to me, so how the Most High rode with me and all my enemies, mark my words, if I don't take all the men that's within his household, by the time the morning light comes up, you can say what you want, pretty much. That's what he's saying to her. Meaning, like, you better step aside because we about to wipe out your whole household, right? Because that man, he wicked, he hurt David's feelings, man. He hurt his feelings, right? Especially knowing that David is a man of the Most High, that you go and you deal with somebody like this, it's like a slap in the face. So David, he's not showing no mercy right now. Verse 23, and when Abigail saw David, she hasted and lighted off the ass and fell before David on her face and bowed herself to the ground. So now she's worshiping, showing obeisance to David to show that she's humble before him, and fell at his feet and said, upon me, my Lord, upon me, let this iniquity be, right? So she's now trying to take the weight from what her husband did, right? Put all that sin on me. Don't look at nobody else. Nobody else is at fault but me. And let thine handmaid, I pray thee, speak in thine audience and hear the words of thine handmaid. Let not, my Lord, I pray thee, regard this man of Belial, even Nabal. So listen to what's going on, right? Because this is her husband. So she talking to, huh? Say again? No, she's speaking to David about her husband. But the way in which she's talking, she's like, listen, let me talk to you. Let me speak to you. Pay no mind to my husband. He got a demon on him, right? Because he says, I pray thee, regard this, let not, my Lord, I pray thee, regard this man of Belial, right? When you use that term or expression, it's as if he got a demon or he's like the devil. So she's speaking to David about her husband in this manner, right? Showing that, listen, he definitely ain't in his right mind. If your wife talk to somebody else like that about you, you're gonna feel away, right? This also plays into what I said to Gabar, hold off, wait till later, you'll see what happens. So now it says, for as his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. But I, thine handmaid, saw not the young men of my Lord, whom thou didst send, right? So yeah, he is the way he is, but keep in mind, I didn't know that you sent men to come up there. I didn't see him, because if I'd have seen him, I would have dealt with it the right way, but I didn't see it. Verse 26, now therefore, my Lord, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, seeing the Lord hath withholden thee from coming to shed blood, and from avenging thyself with thine own hand, now let thine enemies and they that seek evil to my Lord be as Nabal, right? So now I see that there's nothing that's stopping you from coming and want to take vengeance upon this, right? I get it. So now remember, we used, the Most High said that she was a woman of understanding, right? Same way how an Esther went into Ahasuerus, or Judith went to go deal with the men that wanted to now submit to the men of that time, right? The Lord sometimes will lift a woman up with understanding to intervene before something bad happened, right? This is a good example between the Old Testament, New Testament, the Apocrypha, where it's just not all men. Sometimes the Most High has to rely on women of a sound mind and have that spirit and guide them to try to quench or put to bed some of the wickedness and sin that's going on, right? We have righteous men, we have righteous women, right? Men that look good with those attributes, women that look good with those. That's a double blessing right there, right? But the most important thing is that you have individuals like that. You're fortunate if you have somebody that has wisdom like that, like her or Daniel or whoever that's in the midst of you that can speak up for righteousness. Verse 27. And now this blessing which thine handmaid have brought unto my Lord, let it even be given unto the young men that follow my Lord. I pray thee, forgive the trespass of thine handmaid, for the Lord will certainly make my Lord a sure house, because my Lord fighteth the battles of Yahweh, and evil have not been found in thee all thy days. So now for Abigail to know about David and to know that he's been a righteous man since he now came on the scene, Nabal had to have known about him, right? Now had to see the spirit that's on him, but because he got a wicked spirit, it's like when we go out sometimes. Sometimes people will see us and they don't see nothing going on with us. But because we are not aligned with them or they got that spirit on them, they're going to classify us as a demon or a devil. Same thing in the Gospels with Yahushua. What did they call Yahushua? Beelzebub, right? Thou Beelzebub. Nobody ever seen Yahushua do anything wicked. To say that he got a spirit on him that would now cause for somebody to speak in that manner, right? But sometimes it happens where people just don't mess with you. And when you don't mess with somebody, sometimes you want to hurl out accusations on the individual, right? Because you may have a spirit on you. The Lord can send that spirit because you've done something wrong, or the spirit just develops over time, right? So she's now bigging up David, right? Calling him her Lord, because I know you fight the battles for the Most High God, right? Blessings unto you. Then it says, verse 29, yet a man is risen to pursue thee and to seek thy soul, but the soul of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of life with the Lord thy God, and the souls of thine enemies, them shall he sling out, as out of the middle of a sling, right? So the Most High is the one that fights our battles. The Most High is the one that defeats our enemies. So what she's doing is she's now praising him, but she's now slowly turning the tides to say, you shouldn't be the one that deal with him. Should be the Most High, because the Most High is the one that now gives judgment. When you look in the scriptures, when men went out to fight wars, what did they do? They had to go and talk to the men of the Lord or to the priests and say, ask the Most High, should we go fight? Should we go fight today? And sometimes the Lord say, no, I'm not giving them to your hands today. And what do you have to do? You have to stand down. We can't say what, man, I don't think the Most High know what's really going on. We can go win this and go out on your own and try to win the battle, right? That don't normally happen. In the Apocrypha that happened, where you had men who envied Judas Maccabees and what he was doing, and they went out to go fight to get a name for themselves, and they all died. And when it was revealed that these men was not men of the Lord anyway, even though they was with the camp, the spirit that was on those men was not men of the Lord. So they went and died anyway, right? But when you are a man of the Lord, sometimes you rely on the Most High to now give you guidance on how you should move and how you should operate, and not just go off of your own volition. So she now is a woman with understanding and seeing the spirit is on David, that he want to go and slaughter all the men, saying, let the Most High usually does this. He's the one that can go and take care of your enemies, right? Verse 30, and it shall come to pass, when the Lord shall have done to my Lord according to all the good that he has spoken concerning thee, and shall have appointed thee ruler over Israel, right? So what Saul said in the last chapter, Abigail is also saying the same thing. Most High gonna make you king. It's evident. We can see the spirit that's on you. You're gonna be king. That this shall be no grief unto thee, nor offense of heart unto my Lord, either that thou hast shed blood careless, right? Think causeless. Think ahead, David. Think of what's coming. Like this guy, come on now. You don't want this to be on your record. You don't want this to be in your jacket that you went and killed this man, right? Murdered him because he didn't want to give you his food and substance, right? Let that go. You got bigger things to shoot for. The Most High is about to give you the kingdom. It says, or that my Lord have avenged himself. But when Yahweh shall have dealt well with my Lord, then remember thine handmaid, right? So she's dropping a little breadcrumb, right? When the Most High deal with you and he show favor unto you and you prosper, don't forget me. Remember me, David, right? So she was not only looking out for the lives of those men and her husband, but she was also looking out for favor possibly in the future when David get on that throne, or when David is now, guided by the Most High, that he showed favor to her, right? She don't forget about her. Verse 32, and David said to Abigail, blessed be the Lord power of Israel, which sent thee this day to me. And blessed be thy advice, and blessed be thou, which has kept me this day from coming to shed blood and from avenging myself with my own hand, right? So now as David is listening to what she said, he realizes that, she right. Man, I thank the Most High. I thank the Most High for sending you. I thank you for giving me these words so that I don't go out there and shed blood. Shedding blood is not something that's just easy to do amongst your people, right? When it's dealing with the nations and, and they come in to try to fight and take us down and destroy our temples, that's one thing, because we fighting for not only us, we fighting for the Most High's name, we fighting for the sanctity of the temple, all those things. But now when it's amongst each other, we got to think a little bit more, in depth as far as it shouldn't be that easy that I just take my own brother's life. It shouldn't be that easy. You got to really think hard. Today, man, taking a life is like buying some chips. Like, because people don't really think and care. It's like the judgment of what happens when you do something like that. People don't care about death and what comes after it. I was watching a video where a woman, because she found out something that her boyfriend did, out of rage, she went and got in a car and drove. This was, I think, down south, because it was a Kroger supermarket. She drove in the car to go and try to kill him, right? She ran the car. As soon as he came out of the supermarket, she was waiting like a little bit up the thing, in the waiting area. She was waiting for him to come out the supermarket. Soon as he stepped out the supermarket, she hit pedal to the metal. And the SUV, it was an SUV, just came zooming down the thing, and she hit him and then hit another guy that was walking with a cane, right? Killed that guy and hit her boyfriend. Then she got out the car, punching them and everything else. Now the dude laying there in the ground, he dying. Don't matter, right? Sometimes that spirit of wanting to get revenge, or that pain that you have, hurt people, that's how we're motivated. We are fed to live off of emotions and not logic, right? You got to think before you act. And sometimes we have to be reinforced. That's what Abigail is doing for David. Let me give you some more information before you just react, David. He's not like Saul, but he is a man. He is one of your own. So let the Lord deal with that. The same way you letting the Lord deal with Saul, let the Lord deal with this one. Again, like it tells you in Romans, be at peace with all men as much as lieth within you, right? Because sometimes, it may not get to that point where you justify the cause like this, but you're trying. You're trying to perfect your spirit. You're trying to perfect your temperance, trying to perfect your patience, trying to perfect your reliance on the Most High, that he will do right by you. Because sometimes people don't believe that the Lord is going to do right by them, right? If it's a week, a month, a year, the Lord will do right by you. You got to have patience when the Most High is going to do it. David don't know when the Most High is going to make him king, right? He can say, how I know he's going to make me king? I don't know. You could just be words. But no, if you have the faith of the Lord and you see the goodness of him, then you can say, I can rely on the Most High for some things, right? For some things, I can wait on the Lord. And then for other things, the Lord gives you commandments and testimonies on how you act or how you react to certain things. Sometimes it does cause for action. We're not going to be like how the men in the Apocrypha, they didn't want to go fight on the Sabbath day because it's a Sabbath day. No, this causes for us to go fight. We got to go fight. We're not going to wait on the Most High to come and kill everybody else. No, we got to defend ourselves because we see all the men just die, right? Sometimes it calls for action. But let's read on. Oh.
What you said about people shedding blood for nothing, anything in this verse. Ecclesiasticus chapter 8 and verse 16. Ecclesiasticus 8 and 16, it reads, strive not with an angry man, and go not with him into a solitary place. For blood is as nothing in his sight. Where there is no help, he will overthrow.
What was the verse again?
Ecclesiasticus chapter 8 and verse 16. Just on that comment.
What? 8. Oh, yeah, I'm looking at 9. Okay. So that was Ecclesiasticus chapter 8, verse 16, for those who didn't hear the precept. Ecclesiasticus 8:16. Yeah, what we were just talking about. Yeah.
Does Deuteronomy 20:10 about bringing peace into a city?
That's what I thought about when he did that, right? It's just like on a lower level. Or it's like another people, like, because usually you do that for another people, right? Like when you're going through the city of the Ammonites, or you're going through the city of the Hamites or whatever. Because you are a foreigner, you want to now just have a disclaimer. I'm not coming with aggression. I'm just passing through. I'm just peace. I'm not going to come and do anything to you. And you'd hope that they'll say, okay, cool, y'all go ahead. But what David did was kind of the same thing to a certain extent, where he's like, look, peace and blessings to you and your whole household. And, I see your men out here. So it was kind of giving that same thing, because it's a lot of them, right? He was rolling with like, he had with him 600 men, but he had 10 with him, and a lot of them stayed there. But then when he's now about to go fight, he's taking 400. So he had a lot of men, because it could look like a form of aggression. Like if you look out your house and you see a whole army of men coming, you're going to think, what the heck is going on? You grab the guns, right? You're going to be on the porch standing off like, you come in peace or what? So he came and said that this was peace, especially because it might be some people who don't.
And then you got to think about having judges with, I think it was Micah. When they go back to get the stuff that they took, it was like about the same number of guys, like 600 Danites. And the Danites were like, what do you say? He said, you might be careful how you talk.
Right. Right.
Fellas run up on you.
Right. Exactly. And those was Israelites talking to Israelites that way. Right. So sometimes, you can't assume that Israel is going to be peaceable with Israel, or this tribe going to be peaceable with that tribe. Right. There's sometimes envy amongst the tribes. Right. Exactly. Forgot that was funny when we read that. Mm-hmm. Right. So we have verse. What did I stop at? Was it 34?
Yeah.
Okay. So verse 34, it says, "For in very deed, as the Lord God of Israel liveth, which have kept me back from hurting thee, except thou hadst hasted and come to meet me, surely there had not been left unto Nabal by the morning light any that pisseth against the wall." Right. So by the power of the Lord, if you ain't come, it would have been done. Verse 35. So David received of her hand that which she had brought him, and said unto her, "Go up in peace to thine house. See, I have hearkened to thy voice and have accepted thy person." Right. So back to your point, Gabar, as far as for the manner in which he went out to go and do what he did, the sister had to come and impart wisdom on him and say, nah, it's not right. Let the Lord deal. Even though this guy is wicked, let the Lord deal with him that way. So this goes into what Yahushua was trying to expound upon, right? Sometimes we don't all have to always go out for the kill. Like we don't always have to take matters into our own hands. Let the Lord deal with that. Because who knows, that man, Nabal, not to say that that's what's going to happen, but he could have had a spirit on him for that point in time. You're going to pray for him or whatever, and all of a sudden, he's turned back to his right mind. He's in his right mind. Now he realizes the error in his way, and he's not doing that anymore, right? Whereas we hope that happens sometimes when people come up to us and engage with us, and we reading the scriptures or we talking to them, and they catch offense for no reason at all. Right? They slandering us because whatever experience they had with somebody else. So now we don't condemn them to death, like because they dealt with us so harshly. Don't pray the Most High jack you up. Right? I sometimes see, brother, you might not get home tomorrow. You might not get home tonight, brother. But why would you wish that on the brother? Right? Pray for him. Don't think or hope that he might not get home because he was churlish to you. pray for him. I pray to the Lord that, you know, you see the error in your way and you come up out of that spirit. So he had to now have these words spoken to him for him to now have a change of heart and thank the Most High that advice came to make him see a little bit better.
So it's good to say, I guess it's safe to say, doing well versus doing better. Doing better here is, in any scenario, speak to the behavior, speak to the spirit of somebody when it comes to your own door. And that spirit come out, that they change their behavior, as opposed to just shutting somebody down. Also, I bring fire on so-and-so.
Right.
Stop that behavior. Just keep doing that. Then Christ.
Right, because this would, to your point, as far as for, you know, not looking to, you know, wish ill on somebody who doesn't see it, you know, even though that their behavior may not be right. This is what Yahushua said in St. John 3:17. St. John 3:17, for God sent not his son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved, right? Asterisks or quotes around might. So he didn't come with the main say to say that I'm coming to the world. Anybody don't believe me, I'm condemning you to die, right? It was like, nah, maybe they might have the opportunity to have a change of heart, like Paul. When he was Saul, had the name Saul, what was he doing? Right? He was leading those who was following Yahushua to be imprisoned, beat, or even killed. Right? When Stephen was stoned, they brought Stephen's garment to him. Why? Because he was one of those leaders at the time that was championing the cause. So now imagine if we was there at the time and we was out at camp and we seen Paul out there, yo, this him right here, take him. And the cops is leading him away or whatever. We were like, brother, you're going to be put to death. You're going to die. You're going to, you know, how most people do, and saying, listen, man, I pray for you, brother, that you see the error in your way, that you now change your heart and don't look at these brothers as your enemies. They're your saviors in a certain, like if you have that type spirit, that's what the Most High Yahushua wants us to have. The Most High is going to change that term, change that vibe at a certain point where there's not going to be any more mercy. Then it's just going to be judgment. But he's going to make that determination, not us. All right. So now going back to 1 Samuel chapter 25. Now we have verse. Let me see. Give me 1 second. Go to Proverbs chapter 16. To also go with David's character here. Proverbs chapter 16 and verse 32. So Proverbs 16 and 32 says, he that is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he that ruleth his spirit than he that taketh a city. Right? So wherever you got a mighty man, strong man, UFC, you know, champion, whatever, the Lord is like, a person that is slow to anger is better than somebody who, you know, has great physical attributes as a mighty man, or someone is viewed or upheld or viewed a certain way, because that person is almost like how we always classify martial arts. When a person who, you know, gets to a certain level, black belt or whatever belt is higher than that, and they go into certain specific skill sets, is not so much that, you know, they're able to, you know, knock somebody out with 2 fingers, or they can, you know, do all kind of things to you. It's the person that knows how to harness his spirit so that he doesn't even have to use it, right? That he's slow to anger, that he kind of avoids these situations to not bring up a confrontation where you're looking to go and put harm on somebody if you don't have to. That man knows that if he needs to, his back against the wall, then yeah, he's going to do what he got to do. But if he can avoid it and then move, that the Lord shows favor to that man or woman than any of the other attributes that you can normally see.
You say you use the martial arts movie as an example. You'll see that a lot, that motif, whatever, where the young hothead who's like just learning, dealing with people stronger than him, that the master shows up, and the hot-headed student is excited. Yeah, my master's here. Look, he's going, wipe the floor with you. The master just calmly just talks to people, talks them down, and then they resolve it. He starts asking questions,
All right.
and he resolves it through words. And the hot-headed student is like, "What are you doing? You're supposed to use the one." He said, "The one finger death punch. Why can't we use that?" Right. The master looks at the student, shakes his head like, "You don't always got to do that, man."
Right.
Sometimes he just resolve with words. Just talk about it.
Yeah.
You always see that in different movies.
All right, reading on, we have verse 36. And Abigail came to Nabal, and behold, he held a feast in his house, like the feast of a king. And Nabal's heart was merry within him, for he was very drunken. Wherefore she told him nothing less or more until the morning light. So after all that encounter with David, Abigail came back home, and at that point, Nabal had a big old grandiose banquet as if it was a king's banquet, right? Remembering he's a man of wealth. But Abigail didn't say anything to him until the next morning. Verse 37. But it came to pass in the morning when the wine was going out of Nabal, and his wife had told him these things, that his heart died within him, and he became as a stone, right? So when he finally figured out and heard what just happened, it was as if everything in him had now just shut down, right? Because this goes against his whole motive. Like, he didn't care for David or his men or anything. Now to have his wife tell him that she went behind his back and went and did these things, he just almost gave up the ghost. Then it says, verse 38, and it came to pass about 10 days after that the Lord smote Nabal that he died, right? So now what the spirit put in Abigail to happen to Nabal actually happened. It was the Most High who came and dealt with Nabal, not David, right? The Lord can now handle your matters for you, where you don't have to go and shed blood and have that on your a stain to your name. Verse 39. And when David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, "Blessed be Yahweh, that have pleaded the cause of my reproach from the hand of Nabal, and have kept his servant from evil. For the Lord have returned the wickedness of Nabal upon his own head." Right? So David wanted to meet aggression with aggression. And that's what Abigail came to tell him, like, look, that's not right. You don't stoop down to his level. Let the Lord do it. So now the Lord did it. Now he realized that the Lord took, vengeance upon Nabal for how he acted and allowed me to not have to go and do anything. Man, this is great, right? Because I wanted to, and I humbled myself, and I was able to allow the Lord to step in. We pleaded the cause, and he heard the prayers. For the Lord have returned the wickedness of Nabal upon his own head, and David sent and communed with Abigail to take her to him to wife, right? Because remember, once certain blessings and things and fortunes were going to come upon him, she wanted her to be remembered. But in this case, now she can be his wife. Why? Because her husband is dead, right? The law says that a woman is not bound to a husband if her husband dies. Yahushua spoke about that, right? So now she's free to go and marry someone else. So when he went down and communed with her, it was now to go talk and see if she's willing to come and be his wife, right? She already knew about him. It's different. Like nowadays, you got certain celebrities, rappers, athletes, whatever the case may be. Women look at these men because of what they have, right? And the fame and everything else. They got mansions, cars, all that. And they see prosperity and security. So now, if they was given the opportunity, if a man was like, yo, you want to come with me? Oh, sure. Like a woman is going to just run and jump because of the falseness of what they may see that she may be able to get and acquire. Not all women, some women, right? Some of them may see it and go and may, be a little bit more, reasonable and say, nah, okay, we're going to take this a bit slow. There's others who don't give a damn, right? They're just going to go and take advantage of the opportunity, flex, do all they need to do, bags, post Instagram, all that stuff, because it's a look. But back then, it was like different, where women saw righteousness as that same type look, because you've seen how a person moved. You've seen how they operated. They were men of the Lord, how they interacted with the priests, how they interacted with the people. So you judge from afar. You saw the behaviors of an individual. So it don't always need that you have to go on an app and see all the things that this person is about. Oh, he likes swimming, or he likes to read. No, you can see that from afar and judge a person's spirit and conduct before you even meet them. That's how sometimes you interact with people. You look at them from afar. Granted, it might be for an hour. You're at a club or you're at a party or something. Just maybe for a short period of time. But these cases, your name or your reputation preceded you. And then when people saw you, it was like an aura about you. So her going with him to take him to wife, and you don't know how long this was. When it says that they went in communion, you don't know if it was days, weeks, months. You don't know what that is because it doesn't give you a clear timetable. Verse 40. And when the servants of David were come to Abigail to Carmel, they spake unto her, saying, David sent us to thee to take thee to him to wife. And she arose and bowed herself on her face to the earth and said, Behold, let thine handmaid be a servant to wash the feet of the servants of my Lord. Meaning that she's now going to go and be one of, or the wife to David, and take care of the household and things that now pertain to his survival and everything that goes with him being a man of the Lord, right? Verse 42, and Abigail hasted and arose and rode upon an ass with 5 damsels of hers that went after her. So she had a support staff of 5 women that was probably there already when she was there with Nabal, because he was a man of wealth. She needed help around, doing certain things. And after he died, they went and accompanied her with David. And she went after the messengers of David and became his wife. David also took Ahohim of Jezreel, and they were also both of them his wives. But Saul had given Michal, his daughter, David's wife, to Phalti, the son of Laish, which was of Gallim, right? So now, if you remember back, go back to 1 Samuel chapter 18, right? 1 Samuel chapter 18 and verse 20. So it says, and Michal, Saul's daughter, loved David, and they told Saul, and the thing pleased him, right? So she's judging from afar and sees David, and she's now having an affinity and a desire to want to be with David. So the people that's with Saul came and informed him, yo, your daughter likes like David, right? She got a thing for David. Saul like, word? Okay. All right, this might be a good thing to, marry our families together, because David is a man of renown. He's well known. Verse 21, and Saul said, not so. I will give him her that she may be a snare to him. So now it wasn't that he wanted to do this for the good court. He said, listen, I'm going to use this as a snare, right? I'm going to use this as a snare, as a thorn. She's going to be my inside person. Right? And the hand of the Philistines may be against him. Wherefore Saul said to David, thou shalt this day be my son-in-law in the one of the twain. And Saul commanded his servants, saying, commune with David secretly and say, behold, the king hath delight in thee, and all his servants love thee. Now therefore be the king's son-in-law. And Saul's servants spake those words in the ears of David. And David said, seemeth it to you a light thing to be a king's son-in-law, seeing that I am a poor man and lightly esteemed? So now, in order to get a wife, you had to have a dowry and certain things to now come and take a wife. You had to have certain things set up, right? You just can't go take a wife and don't have things set up so that you can provide food, raiment, and shelter. You had to think about these things. And this is the king's daughter, right? So there's going to be some expectation that the king's daughter is going to have certain amenities to go along with it. You think it's a light thing that me, a poor man, is going to go and take the king's daughter to be a wife? Come on now. Verse 24. And the servants of Saul told him, saying, on this manner spake David. And Saul said, thus shall you say to David, the king desireth not any dowry, but 100 foreskins of the Philistines to be avenged of the king's enemies. but Saul thought to make David fall by the hand of the Philistines. So he's like, don't worry about a dowry, David. All I want is the foreskins of the heads of those Philistines, right? I want you to go out there and fight and kill those Philistines and bring me back their heads. And in Saul's mind, this guy going to die in the war. I ain't got to worry about him no more. He ain't going to be a threat to me anymore. Verse 26, and when his servant told David these words, it pleased David well to be the king's son-in-law, and the days were not expired. Wherefore David arose and went, he and his men, and slew of the Philistines 200 men, not 100, but 200. And David brought their foreskins, and they gave them in full tale to the king, that he might be the king's son-in-law. And Saul gave him Michal, his daughter, to wife. And Saul saw and knew that the Lord was with David, and that Michal, Saul's daughter, loved him. And Saul was yet the more afraid of David, and Saul became David's enemy continually, right? So now, from that moment on, we see the enmity that they had between each other. But Saul had already promised Michal to David. But now, as we read in here in 1 Samuel 25, the last verse says that Saul now reneged, right? He took Michal away and now gave it to some other guy. Right, that's going to come up later on. It's going to be a funny situation when David now wants to go back and get his wife. What has to happen, right? It's a strange situation, but it's a testimony that's going to be in the Bible when we read it. A bit funny though. All right. So thus endeth 1 Samuel 24 and 25. Thus endeth, right? Next week will be in the New Testament. Let me see what we're reading. So does it no. Let me check. I thought he read 3 and 4. Yeah. Let me see. Galatians. Yeah, it should be.
So whatever comes out.
It should be Ephesians 1 and 2. Did he read? Yeah, he read 6. So yeah, Ephesians 1 and 2. So next week it'll be Ephesians chapters 1 and 2 for the Sabbath service. So remembering what I mentioned this theme during the class, the 24th of September is the 7th new moon, also the memorial blowing of the trumpets. 10 days following that new moon, on October 3rd, sundown, will be the Day of Atonement. 5 days after that will be the Feast of Tabernacles, which will be on a Saturday night. I think it's the 8th Saturday night. And then 8 days after that, the following Saturday night, will be the closing of the Feast of Tabernacles. All right. So just remember, if you don't have the high holy days, you'll begin to mark your calendars and just start preparing for those days. And I mentioned, if those who may have a tent or wants to get a tent to kind of be in the spirit of things of keeping the feast, you can go online or you can go to a sporting goods or Walmart and just get a little tent, something that you can put up in your household, or something you can put up outside just to experience what the Most High planned for all Israel to dwell in booths during the first 7 days of the 8-day feast for the Feast of Tabernacles. All right. So with that, give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High for the Sabbath day, for the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that has come out in the Sabbath service. Lord's will, everybody was able to get the understanding and the precepts. Any questions on things? I do see the comment. Lord's will, we'll keep in mind that if we're making any comments in the audience, we can speak up, elevate our voices, right? Like you're in a concert, you want to yell and make sure it can be well heard, like Isaiah 58 and 1, so everybody can get the
Supposed to, like, before we use this camera that's pointing.
Yeah, I could use that too. I could try that the next time. Yeah, I can just set that up on there. Yeah, it might be low on this laptop. All right, so with that, I'll say a Shabbat, happy Sabbath to the brothers and sisters, and Most High's will, everybody has a Tawab or blessed remaining Sabbath day. And stay tuned for the closing prayers. Shalom. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asheran, Atalanawa, Par Yahagapin, Thawada Aman, La Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ath Yasha Allah. Again, English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it, to Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, with Israel. Might upon you while you're awesome, stand and face Jerusalem. Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Baba Kushah, Shemai, Lanawa, Aitha, Yem Yun, Aitha, Shalak, Mayaka Allah, Waha Allahayim, Tazwadakim, La, Shema'ayim, Barak, Rapah, Magun, Wahakazayak, Banya, Yasha Allah, Washalak, Lanawa, Rabium, Kakama, Rabium, Da'ai, Rabium Bayana, Rabium Sabalonwa, Rabium Amawan, Rabium Aqua, Rabium Ahabium, Rabium Hagana, Rakhanaya, Wasalat, Kal, Katayam Nawa, Lahaakim, Wa Akwa, Wa Yasha'ala, Thamyad, Wa Iwalam, Bahasham, Yahawashai, Thawada, Amun. English translation. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, pleases to us now, right now. Send Michael and the righteous powers of angels to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel. And send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, much spiritual protection, and forgive all our sins for the brothers and sisters in Israel, always and forever, in the name of Yahweh Shai. Thank you, so be it. Four Corners Prayer. Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Barak Nawa, Wayasha Allah, Wabath Yasaparim, Shema, Yasharella, Yahweh, Allah Hayanawa, Yahweh, Akkad. Okay, again, English translation. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, bless us and Israel in the house of books or schools. And Deuteronomy 6:4, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our power is one. That again will say Shah Shabbat, Happy Sabbath, and Shalom.
Shalom.